This is Amazon Lily, once again, um, coming at you on Tuesdays. Um, we have a nice group of panelists with us, and a few new people who haven't been here. But first, we'll start off with Catherine. Catherine Dominates, who just made it here in time. How are you, Catherine?
I am good. I'm very good, actually. I keep saying this in all your panels, is that I've been very, very busy because things keep happening, and more things have happened since the last time I talked to you. I've got a opportunity with a new streaming partnership with what's it called, the debate forum community on Discord. So I'm affiliated with them, and I'm actually just became the art advisor on their board of directors.
Oh, wow!
Hey,
Congrats!
Yeah. And I actually, I met someone recently that's going well, and so just like every sphere of my life, like work. There's the 4 different work spheres: personal sphere, and then spiritual sphere are all in chaos and stuff. So yeah, going really well, but hectic. And that's why I was technically 10 minutes late. I was complaining I wouldn't have time to shower, and Kurt gave me permission to come in late. So I got ready in just 25 minutes, doing the absolute bare minimum to feel comfortable on stream.
Bare minimum, yay! I'm a fan of that for stream too.
Yeah,
that's why I just slap on a wig and some mascara.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here like, yeah, I don't care.
Yeah,
sure.
They will take me as I am, or they will not have me at all.
Oh, thank you for being here. Okay, next we have Bela, who's joining us once again. We haven't seen you in a little bit, Bela. Thanks for coming by.
Yeah, life happened. For those that follow me on Twitter, y'all have seen I am wrapping up going through a divorce. But it's completely amicable. This is honestly the easiest breakup I have ever gone through in my entire life. So that's good. It's a relief. I'm allowed to be myself and do things that I was just kind of not really allowed to do when I was in that relationship. So it's really nice. A little bit about me for those who do not know me. I am in environmental science and policy, activism, justice, law, all that fun stuff. Outside of Twitch, I work for Simpatico Studios. What I do on Twitch, I do for them, but professionally, and I interview academics and researchers about their work, publications. So I'm actively reading academic papers and published works literally every single day because it's my job. I have a bunch of reptiles, and yeah, I stream in the morning. So if you like morning content, that's where I am. So.
Okay. Yeah. Everyone, check out Bela. So thank you for coming through. Despite everything that's been going on, it's really kind of you to come here. I hope we can take your mind off all of that and have a good time. Next, Kezbox, who's been a supporter of the channel for quite a long time, but we haven't actually. I don't think we've ever done anything together.
No, we keep meaning to, and just time zones have just made it really difficult, haven't they? Because I'm in the UK, so it is currently 1:15 in the morning for me.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to sleep tonight. Fine. Be fine. I've got ADHD anyway, it'll be fine. So I'm Kezbox. I am a non-binary pansexual parent of 2. Poly-leaning, but currently in a monogamous relationship. I stream politics and disability rights advocacy and queer rights advocacy, and I educate people about gender and sexuality and general queerness. I also play video games on stream. Earlier on, I did those subscription boxes you can get where you get a different country snack, snacks every month. I got one of those, so I did an unboxing and tasting of a load of Turkish snacks earlier on stream. Oh, they mostly really weren't. I don't know what was
Really?
wrong with the
That's so
Turkish
surprising.
delight, but it should not have had that texture. I tried the mint Turkish delight, and I shit you not, it was like old rubbery toothpaste.
Ooh,
Yeah.
No.
don't like that description.
Nope. Turkish delight is not supposed to be chewy. It's supposed to melt. Yeah. I mostly meme and talk shit. Because why not?
Okay.
And shout at people for being wrong. Also, I am a dirty socialist, and I am okay with it, and there is nothing you can do to change my mind.
Hell yeah.
Hey, socialist
Hey.
squad.
Okay. Next, we have two people who are brand new to the channel, and I'm very excited to meet them. Riverboat Jack, who was kind enough to raid us before. That was really nice of you. Thank you for being here. Yeah, tell us about yourself. I know nothing.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm a market socialist. I'm relatively new to Twitch in general. Basically, the entire ethos of my Twitch channel is that I want to get as big as possible to advocate for a better world via the mechanisms of democracy and push for market socialist agendas in our government over here in the good old US of A. That's the basic ethos of my channel, but I've been a podcaster for the past 10 years. I worked predominantly as a games journalist during that same amount of time. I work with nonprofits in the United States, mostly Children's Miracle Network hospitals. Yeah, I've done a lot of like gaming podcasts, like live play Dungeons and Dragons stuff. I've done all kinds of different weird things. But this is my latest endeavor because I want to try and make the world a better place, you know?
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, that's very interesting, guy. I've never played. Well, I actually played D&D one time in college. It was a lot of fun, and we want to do more, but like it just never happened, and that was many years ago. Everyone's always playing D&D now, but like like on stream, but like I'm never available, and so I don't know. Maybe one day it'll happen. But,
You do stream for like 8 hours at a time.
Yeah.
I was gonna say a D&D game is never just, oh, we'll just hang out and play D&D for a couple hours. It's always
No, it's
8 hours.
it's the long haul. My shirt actually has very gay D&D dice all down the side of it.
Oh, I didn't
I am-
notice that.
I am a DM,
Me too.
both in real
Oh,
life and
Sounds
I
like
am
we should
setting
all
up
get together.
Yes, I am actually setting up a group for on stream, but I've been thinking about doing two side by side. But I also have a real life group as well, so it might get messy
Ooh.
because one of my groups has 8 people in it.
Ooh, that's
Wow.
hard.
Yeah.
That's real
and I'm
hard.
the only DM, so and it's a homebrew campaign, so that could be more fun.
Oh, the homebrew campaigns are like putting like a child out into the world because your players can make that setting live or die, you know?
It's like a set setting, but I'm changing a load of it. So I'm starting off of the Exandria base from the Wildmount guide
Oh, okay.
because I'm a Critical Role fan.
Mhm.
And it's a world I know, and I know most of the descriptions for because I watch Critical Role. So it's like a base I can go off of and jump from.
And
Sorry, we're going off about it.
Yeah, sorry.
Exactly. Yeah. That's cool. But thank you for being here, Wojak. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
lovely. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Next, Rara. I'm pronouncing this completely incorrectly. I feel like I'm supposed
No,
to put
you
an
got
accent
it.
somewhere. Okay. No?
No,
I got it. All right.
it's like rah rah.
All right.
Rah Rah Imler is my name. I know it's a nickname, so it's fine if you get it wrong. There's no right way to say it.
Okay. All right. Well, Rara, this is our first time meeting. Please tell me and my audience about yourself.
So my name is Rara Imler. In the old world, I was a stand-up comedian. I've been doing stand-up comedy for almost 8 years. With the pandemic, I kind of pivoted to digital stuff. And I just started doing a Twitch stream called Hot Girl Agenda. And we're doing like a weekly stream. It's basically, I call it unapologetic leftist femme agitprop. So it's basically, I talk to community organizers. I try to get as many femme people on as possible, as many femme and non-binary people on as possible. basically non-men. And we also do silly little segments. Like I recently started doing a segment where I do my makeup before work, and I just stream that. I'm doing an advice column types like Dear Abby for Anti-Capitalists, which is premiering on Thursday on the channel. And I'll be having one of my dear friends to join me for that advice column style thing. But yeah, basically, I just saw kind of a hole in leftist media where I could insert some femme propaganda. So I jumped on it. So
Heck
Yeah.
yeah.
I think there is, yeah, that's a niche that has not been filled. Let me tell you, I mean, we're trying to get more femme personalities on to, like, provide a platform for them. But on Twitch, there's just really not that many. So the more, the merrier. I think there's definitely a lot of places where femme voices have not been heard on this platform. And so,
but
yeah,
also, like, there's not a ton. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of people out there doing it. We're just not getting as much attention as like some of the bigger streamers and platforms and stuff. So I would like really want to highlight that. And also, I'm a community organizer as well, and a sex worker online as well as in person. I'm a stripper. So I do talk a lot about that a lot on my podcast as well as my streams. So I do like to bring those issues to the forefront of discussions as well. So yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for being here, Rara. It sounds actually pretty fascinating. Your content sounds quite unique. So yeah, we'll try to get links out to you guys. It'd be helpful if you typed in my chat at some point in time, so that I can just easily shout you out later on. But just whenever. And well, okay. Thank you, first of all, Class Time, for resubbing for 4 months. Really, Class Time? You've been here that long? That's amazing. I did not know that. Thanks for being around, Class Time, and resubscribing. Welcome back to the Worst Generation. Thank you, Spectre, for being kind enough to give 5 hot tier 1 gift subs to DB Michelle, Your Environment Seattle, Aftershock, Wonder Elephant, and Ultra Thor. Okay. All of you, welcome to the Worst Generation. Really, really appreciate every single person here. All right. Last, and certainly not least, the fashionably late, Joe, the silly serious, who I'm always happy to have around. Joe, my friend, how are you doing today?
I'm okay. I have not slept all that much, but I'm good. Also, Rara, I do stand up too. That's so awesome. I don't do it on here, but I do it outside of here. So that's really awesome to hear that you do that.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't. What did you ask me?
I said, how are you doing?
Yeah, good.
Maybe that's not might not be right. It's okay though. Little white lies. Thank you for being here as always, Joe, my friend. All right, so we'll get started. All right. First topic. Topic 1. OnlyFans was popularized during the pandemic and now has 500,000 content creators, mainly pornographic models who do commission work. What kind of cultural outcomes do you predict now that the gig economy has included sex workers? Is the stigma for this kind of labor likely to lessen at all? Or is the history of doing this work going to follow people around for the rest of their lives? And credit to Captain Dominates for providing us with this question. All right. So we'll go around. Maybe we'll start with Kat, since this was your question.
Sure. I could start off because the question sort of is where I'm at on this. I have no idea how this is going to go, and I'm really interested in talking about it, seeing other people's perspectives.
Yeah. Okay then. All right. Kezbox, introduction.
Hi. So I actually am myself a former sex worker. I've been at the end of all the stigma and bullshit you get for being a sex worker. I used to be an escort. Now I made money hand over fist at the time, because I was damn good at my job. But things were getting strained between my partner and I, and I had to give it up for various reasons. Since like the rise of OnlyFans, I have thought about going back to it, but my concern is that it's not going to normalize sex work in the way that we hope. My concern is that we're going to end up essentially with, oh yeah, but it's mostly just nudes. OnlyFans is fine. Like, it's not real sex work. As opposed to, oh, actually sex workers are people who do things because of their material conditions, which is what we actually need. I don't think sex workers will affect the gig economy very much. And if they do, it's hard to predict how, just because it's so unprecedented. I mean, sex workers in a way work in the gig economy anyway, particularly escorts. It's just now moved online. So I don't foresee like a particularly big change, just it being a bit more accessible to people who don't see OnlyFans as sex work. And I think that's the way it'll be. It'll be, oh, well, OnlyFans is fine. Because that's not real sex work, that's just pictures. But I think that'll be it.
Okay. Next, Bela.
I'm kind of in the same opinion of so I do not have an OnlyFans. I've never worked in I've never been a sex worker. It's something that for myself personally, I'm just not interested in doing. I have plenty of friends who are in the industry though. And they talk to me about their experiences, and I have several friends who I know IRL that are strippers. But it's really because you already see the types of comments on Twitter and everything, right? Where it's oh, well, OnlyFans is it's more safe, kind of just quoting it, it's safe. It's not you're out putting yourself out there with other people. And so it seems like the conversation turns into giving the people of OnlyFans a weird online pass. And it's been put into this different category when it really shouldn't be. So I'm not entirely sure where it's all going to go. I mean, but for just looking at the current trend, it sounds like what was just mentioned, that it's just kind of continue on with this narrative of well, it's not real sex work, so we kind of respect you a little bit more, but it's no, it's the same thing, and respect should be there regardless of what you're doing. So that's kind of that's where I am on it. And I have very minimal to no experience in this whole industry, so it's kind of hard for me to really comment on it as well. It's just stuff from what I've observed from the conversations that are happening around it. So
Okay, thank you for that. Riverboat Jack.
Yeah, so I am also a sex worker. I have an OnlyFans, so I do nude modeling and videos and create custom content, all that good stuff. And largely I just see this issue as an indication of how flexible capitalism can be, because we're moving outside of the norms for this. You could even see a few years ago, Tumblr was acquired by a new business model, and then they were no more sex stuff on Tumblr, and then Tumblr completely imploded. And I think we're also sort of seeing a similar thing on OnlyFans as well. If people are kind of invested in that platform, you might know that there's been kind of a movement to downplay how much sex work actually goes on OnlyFans, and kind of highlight that, hey, personal trainers are on OnlyFans, this is what we should be known for. It's the arts and crafts, and we have these things, and I think that largely, if OnlyFans does become a vehicle for like an acceptance of sex work, it's largely going to be extremely begrudgingly, and only because the platform can make money off of it, which I don't think is generally a good avenue for this to go down, because it just leads to more avenues of exploitation of sex workers who are already frequently quite overexploited, in my opinion. I would hope that it would lead to more open-mindedness on the topic, but I think that largely that if it is going to lead to more open-mindedness and more acceptance, it needs to be done hand in hand with some sort of social movement, some sort of broader initiative on the part of not just sex workers, but allies as well, feminists of all different stripes. Need to kind of come together on this issue, because fundamentally it's an issue that, you know, I view it no different than any other kind of labor you can do under a capitalist system, and we should be treating it the same way, and advocating for more freedom in that regard.
Okay. I think that's a fool's errand by OnlyFans at this point.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a lot to talk about there. That's a really interesting thought that they're trying to do that. Rawa.
Yeah, so
if you
people...
could mute your whereby.
I'm sorry. One second.
Yeah, go ahead.
You hear me now?
Okay. Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So there's a lot to talk about with this
particular. I'm sorry.
My mic is really messed up.
Could you
pivot to
somebody else really quick so I can figure out what's going on? I'm so sorry.
No problem.
So sorry.
Okay. Next we'll go to Joe.
Okay. Yeah, I find this interesting because for me, the OnlyFans thing becomes particularly interesting when I look at like the gentrification of OnlyFans, basically, when it becomes less a platform for sex workers actually doing their job and more like something that everyone has, like Instagram or Twitter. And it's this weird commodification of every part of our lives where capitalism is like, oh, you have a car, that can be a taxi. You have a room, that can be a hostel. And now it's like, oh, you have a body and you have intimacy, well, that we can monetize that too. And that is fine to me if that is your job. If you're a sex worker, no issue. It's when it starts to become sort of omnipresent. I think it does harm to sex workers, not good. And I think it does harm to people generally, because professional sex workers are used to using their body to create art, to create work, they know what product they're creating. But there's this weird blur between the professional and the personal with the gentrification of OnlyFans, where suddenly your value comes from the market. People telling you, oh, you think your selfie is good? Well, put it up on OnlyFans, and if it's good, people will buy it and they'll prove it. Like, you need market to sort of like validate your own sort of value in society. And it's this idea of competition now sitting on your shoulder. Well, if you're not getting money, then you should improve your product. You need to get better looking. You need to get better at posing. You need to get fitter. You need to do more wild things that you wouldn't normally do. I don't think it's good for sex workers who actually know how to do this work and understand what they're creating and understand where these boundaries lie, for people to come in and be like, oh, I have an OnlyFans, but like, it's just for fun. I was just bored during quarantine. Like, I don't think it's helpful to sort of distort this culture in this way, because it invalidates, just like Instagram isn't work. Instagram is just us showing our lives. Twitter isn't work. It's just us writing our thoughts. It is work. But once you start blurring that, that's not good for sex workers either, because it's invalidating the actual work they do on OnlyFans. When people start going, oh no, I just love taking nudes, and I thought, like, why not? Like, it's actual work, and it's like erasing that boundary as far as I'm concerned.
Interesting take. Rawa.
Okay, I'm ready to talk. There's a lot of great points being brought up with this. And I agree with the sense that influencer culture has infiltrated sex work to the point where if every moment of your existence as a sex worker is not being monetized or is not observable, you are missing out on this market, because that is the expectation now, that as a sex worker online on OnlyFans, that you are just supposed to be accessible like 24/7 just because you are a sex worker online. And the thing about that too is that it's like you said, these lines get blurred because a lot of these, typically cis, like typically beautiful by Eurocentric standards, skinny models and influencers on Instagram will get on OnlyFans and try to separate themselves outside of, like, sell their nudes, but not consider themselves sex workers, which is just bullshit. And it's just another way of reinforcing the hierarchy, which is something we should be working to dismantle. Especially as leftists, as socialists and communists and anarchists and all the in-betweens there. But I think to try to answer the question, I think culturally, I think there is a renaissance of attitude towards being supportive of especially online sex workers, especially with the pandemic being what it is, and people's labor transferring to the online realm. And historically, like, survival sex work has included online work ever since the internet was around. So this is not anything kind of new culturally. I think what's new about it is that OnlyFans as a platform has not done anything to normalize sex work. In fact, in a lot of their advertising for the platform, they don't even mention sex workers at all. They'll mention magicians before they mention sex workers. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And there's no internal searching with OnlyFans either. So you literally have to build up your OnlyFans from your outside social media. So they take 20% to 30% of your money, depending on where you are in the world, and they don't give you any support, and their platform's shit and it crashes constantly. So it's like, as much as we love to say we want to normalize something, it doesn't matter when if the labor is normalized, if our labor conditions are not improved, it doesn't mean anything to be culturally normalized. It's like saying, like, oh, we've normalized being gay, but it's like, or we've normalized being trans. It's like, maybe culturally we've done that in the larger sense, but legislatively we're nowhere near close to what we need to do to make things right and to correct the violence that has been done against marginalized groups. And I don't think I need to really emphasize this point to the people in this panel, but a lot of queer people, a lot of trans people, a lot of BIPOC people, a lot of people with mental illnesses and physical illnesses, and chronic illnesses and everything, those are sex workers online, and it's an appealing career because of the flexibility that it allows. So in a sense, online sex workers have always been a part of the gig economy, just like disabled sex workers, just like disabled people and queer people who are not given employment opportunities in regular 9-to-5s or regular jobs that compensate us appropriately for our time. So, and Jack said this, that we do need to connect sex work to a larger social movement, and really attach it to feminism in a way that it hasn't been attached before, because there's obviously a lot of feminists that disagree about sex work's place in the feminist movement. And I fully believe that it is a very divisive way to think about feminism, to separate sex workers from other laborers and to separate sex workers from other femmes and non-men. So I think, as long as I think sex workers have a place in the labor movement that we have not really quite claimed yet. And I really hope that in the next couple of years, we really realize our power as workers. And it's going to be especially difficult as gig workers, like most of us are. But I've seen more support in this community and more lateral mutual aid than in any other industry I've ever been in. So I have hope for us, if only because I have hope in my peers that I talk to every day. So, yeah.
All right, so I'll open this up to the floor. Kezbox is raising their hand, but I'll say, as an employee of a wonderful corporation, them taking half my money is what they deserve, right? I certainly would never question that. So it's weird to me that you're complaining about 20 or 30%. They deserve it. They did 20 or 30% of the work, I'm sure, right? Please don't question your corporate masters. Kezbox.
Prime, your sarcasm horns are showing again. Yeah, I just wanted to address what Rara said about OnlyFans ads not mentioning sex work. There is a good reason for that. In a few European countries, actually quite a few at this stage, there are now laws that say that websites cannot advertise the fact that they platform sex workers. Websites are not allowed to say, we are for sex workers, or we have sex workers on our site. Particularly in the UK, it was a law that was introduced to the EU by the UK before we decided to fucking up and leave like wankers. And yeah, basically it says that. So, do you know Adult Work, the website?
I don't think I'm familiar with it. No.
So
is
Adult
it a UK
Work
website?
It's both. It's got a UK and a US branch, I believe. So Adult Work is literally as it sounds. It is essentially like Craigslist for sex workers.
Okay.
And like you browse the sex workers' photos, and you can buy more obscene photos, and so on and so on. Obscene in quote marks. No one's asking you. Be quiet. And yeah, because Adult Work was lifting off so much, and there were so many of us doing so well on it, the government decided, fuck it, let's bring in regulations for that. So a website A now has to have definite proof of age, which fine. B is not allowed under any circumstances, even post Watershed, to advertise the fact that they host sex workers.
I didn't realize that it was that strict in some countries. That's pretty terrible.
The UK has a really weird attitude with sex, like in general. Sex work laws are weird here. So it is legal to sell sex as an escort. It is illegal to buy it. It is also illegal to, in any way, shape, or form, profit off of the money made by a sex worker. So technically, you're not allowed to rent a house to a sex worker. You're not allowed to work security for a sex worker. You're not allowed to be a driver for a sex worker. You're not allowed to do admin for a sex worker, or social media, anything, or like in any way, shape, or form. You are not allowed to work for or get money from a sex worker.
So that would be the Swedish model then, right? Correct?
I think the Swedish model is actually a bit more lax than ours.
Yeah. I had no idea it was that strict over there. I thought Sesta Fosta was screwing us pretty badly, but wow, y'all have it hard.
Yeah. And more than one sex worker cannot work out of the same area without it being counted as a brothel, even if they're working at different times.
That's
wow.
Bizarre, yeah.
Yeah.
I really like...
Hold on, Riverboat, I think you had your hand up previously.
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to build off of the previous point that Rara was making, and the silly serious. And just that there's like this pernicious aspect to gig economy sex work, like the weird commodification of this, where like OnlyFans, well, like first off, we're banned off of Patreon. You know, you can't use Patreon, the largest and best known crowdsourcing site. You know, you can't use that. So a lot of people went over to OnlyFans, and the thing with OnlyFans is, like Rara mentioned, it doesn't have any built-in, I guess, ways search engine, or even ways to just build up your audience. So it relies on other social media sites for you to build up your audience, which, as the silly serious pointed out earlier, like it is putting work into social media companies that, you know, typically are not associated with like work, like posting on Twitter or posting on Instagram aren't necessarily usually thought of as work, though they are still work. So in order to be successful on OnlyFans or as like a gig economy sex worker, you also have to be successful at building up a social media network, which is working for other companies as well. And it's like this is all so messy and gross and kind of why does it have to be like this? And the answer is it doesn't have to
unnecessarily
be.
so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Catherine?
Yeah. I have a few different points. I'm going to go to I haven't actually signed up on OnlyFans, and you're talking about all the many, many problems with this site. Is the main value of OnlyFans as like a service to use just the fact that it has reliable payouts compared to trying to get on Patreon or PayPal or all these other big companies that crack down extremely harshly on sex workers?
I think the appeal for it right now is that it's kind of like the new hot platform for users. I think it's it's not even very user friendly, which is so funny. There's other platforms out there that are so much better, but OnlyFans is the buzzword, right? It's been the buzzword for like 2 years now. And their payouts, I hesitate to call them reliable because I've had lost payouts that I've heard horror stories of people's accounts being shut down and they had thousands of dollars in them, and it took a while to either get them back or they didn't get them back at all. And I hesitate to call it reliable. I'd say it's just the hot hashtag right now. It's the most user recognizable of a lot of the adult sites. It's younger. So it's like it's got that newness, that freshness to it, and they haven't started cracking down yet on sex workers. Like Patreon, obviously, there's nothing we can really do there unless we, conceal our sales somehow and refer them to outside ways of acquiring the media we sell. But again, it's like, why would you bother with a site that didn't allow that when you could just go to a site like OnlyFans where they still allow it? It's the same thing with like Instagram. A lot of sex workers are just being shut down on Instagram because they are very serious about their guidelines now. So everyone's accounts are just being flagged and shut down. And it's like, why would you bother with that when you can go on Twitter and you can post whole on Twitter, so I think it's just people's it's ease of use for both the content creators and the users for now, but we'll see how that plays out in the future, because historically it has not gone well for sex workers, obviously, online when a platform blows up because of them and then they're just left in the dust once it gets big enough in the civilian world. So
can I also add that there are like you were saying, it's like a known quantity, so in a way it's like branding yourself a little bit, like and people are more willing to go to that known quantity rather than like some site they haven't heard of before. But on top of that, OnlyFans, at least in theory, I haven't encountered this myself yet or had a need to use this, but at least in theory provides like copyright protection for its content. So like other sites can't necessarily steal your content from OnlyFans, which probably
they can.
Yeah, like I've heard I have heard that OnlyFans on at least on paper is supposed to be protecting copyright, but I doubt that they're very successful at that.
No, you actually most of the serious content creators I know have DMCA takedown services that they pay for externally. It's something that that should be paid for on any adult platform, really. OnlyFans says that they have copyright protections, but it's literally they'll slap a OnlyFans, like they'll slap your OnlyFans URL at the bottom of a video or picture, and that's literally it. And they don't give a shit if it's on other website, they don't care. So it's all just lip service, really, because there's no and a lot of this too is like we don't know who owns OnlyFans, like who runs it, who is on the board, why, like what is going on with this company, because there's no transparency around it, and that makes it hard to figure out who the fuck to talk to, right? So there's also that frustration there. So we'll see how long OnlyFans lasts. If you're out there and you're an OnlyFans girl and you don't have any other platforms, you need to diversify yesterday. Get on every other platform.
They're nameless, faceless corporate overlords. I don't know what you also need to know, right? Like they take a piece of your money. That's all that matters.
They provide you with the gospel of the vague terms of service, and then you see them dispense justice to those who break it, and from that you interpret the will of the overlords. And so
praise.
They think they're Jesus. That's what that is. They think they're Jesus.
Casbox, did you want to say something?
Yes. So I've got two questions, sort of. One, surely anyone with a basic businessly minded brain would go, maybe we'd make more money if we had an algorithm. Number one. Oh god, what was the other thing? My brain.
The space is absolutely right for someone to come in and do a more open thing like OnlyFans, and to actually do the things we want, which is be more open about the fact that sex workers work there, not screw people over constantly. There are so many workers who would flock there, and you would be able to profit off of if you could have that infrastructure. I just don't think there's many people who know the things that we're talking about on this panel and also have the capital to set something like that up.
Well,
yeah. The other no, you're right. The other point I was going to make was I think part of the reason OnlyFans has blown up so much is because it's a novelty, and a huge amount of I don't know what just happened to my light there. A huge amount of influencers and streamers and what have you have gone, fuck it, I'm gonna make an OnlyFans because it looks like fun, as opposed to that's sex work and I need money. Looks like fun. I could use a couple of extra bucks.
Do you think, Casbox, there's a double speak there, right? In that we are in a time of unprecedented economic crisis, and people will say, I'm just doing it because it's fun. It's not because of the money. I'm just doing it because it's fun. To say what Rara was talking about, that they're discounting, they're trying to say it's not sex work, even though really they are participating in sex work.
And 9 times out of 10, it's because they're terrified of labeling themselves as a sex worker.
Yeah.
Because in so many places it's illegal.
It is gentrification, though. It is 100% gentrification, and you'll hear I hear people talking about it all the time, and a lot of these bigger accounts too. They run their own little scams on these other girls with less followings, and there's share for share paid promo, all this stuff. And the higher up you go, up the food chain, basically, of OnlyFans girls, the higher the higher prices you'll see for people charging for promotional stuff. Just people paying $250 to get a retweet on one girl's page because she has 120,000 fans or something like that, shit like that. And so it's all of this money, it's basically replicating in a microcosm, a micro environment, the problems of capitalism writ large, right? Is just creating this micro environment of the people at the top circulating money to each other and getting more money and getting bigger and bigger, and the people at the bottom just basically just struggling to just even make a couple $100 a month. So it's a huge problem.
As I understand it, sex work, in-person sex work, when it comes to racial categorization, and also whether you're cis or whether you're trans, right? All those things, the further you are from a white female, I've heard that you can charge, you generally can charge less, right? People won't pay as much. Do you feel it's the same in OnlyFans? Or does that not matter in this space?
Yeah, it's absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's absolutely true. Yeah. It is so much more difficult. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kat. I've been talking.
No, of course. So it's both the hierarchy, right, and also this sort of purity politics or purity capitalism, in which the purer you are, the more the market seems to want you. And you'll have people like Belle Delphine, who looks sort of like she's underage and does gaming stuff and is extremely, extremely popular. I think still hasn't done any quote unquote real porn that would break that spell of purity. And it's also, all of capitalism is sort of white supremacist. So part of that purity is the fact that you're a cis white woman and not a trans sex worker, or in this case a male sex worker, or a black sex worker. and the less you fit this archetypical purity, the less you're wanted and valued. And to just go back to what Joe said a long time ago about like the way the market validates sex workers, I'm a sex worker too, actually. Like I do a little bit of pro findom, but I'm bad personally at doing the marketing aspect. I don't particularly think the market has a big desire for me. And so that part of myself, that job that I have open and should be working, is just sort of sitting there. Like my username is Catherine Dominates for a reason. I rebranded to that for a reason. But because there isn't like that market validation there, I'm just sort of like, I don't know, up in the air on it.
Yeah, I mean, women generally are, and femme-presenting people generally are hypersexualized and marketed by society anyway. So sex workers on top of that, especially if they are easy to access, like they are on OnlyFans or on Pornhub, is just a recipe for disaster. A recipe for exploitative disaster.
Because that's really interesting, because I was thinking about that before when Rara was talking about also it's not just a sex work, it's this weird parasocial dimension now that exists too, where it's like sex workers are expected to like take care of these people and like give them so much more than just like a nude or a sexy dance on cam. Like it's like, I need to update you on my life all day and like be nice to you because I require your support for my work in order to make this viable for me. And so the amount of access, like your entire world becomes commodified for other people to sort of purchase. And like this is, you know, like I know often when I talk on this panel, it always comes back to capitalism. But like at the end of the day, it's true. Sex work would exist outside of capitalism. Sex work does exist outside of capitalism. It's necessary. Like it will always exist.
And it would exist differently, right?
Yeah, and the issue is even when you're talking about it, the second you bring capital in, creates this weird discussion where it's like they're either victims or they're empowered. And it's like
there's no, I'm doing it because I want to, just leave me alone and let me live my fucking life.
Yeah, so there's an easy way to describe this for people watching. Sex workers are workers. We're in the same situation as all the other workers, right? We are sort of victims. We're sort of empowered. We sort of have choices, but not really. It's like we're all in the same capitalist system.
And that's so...
except sex work is illegal mostly, and there's a massive issue where honestly the systematic oppression against sex workers is larger than that against drug dealers, another job that's illegal in America, right? They actually announced a war on drugs and started prosecuting it. It wasn't just a passive thing that was already in place and has been in place and is in place all over the world, the way the system working in sex work is.
Joe, finish your point.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's really interesting to me because as someone who's not a sex worker, I really struggle in bringing up points that like Rara brought up before about like labor exploitation. Because I feel like if I start to talk about the labor exploitation that happens on OnlyFans to sex workers, people say to me, oh, why do you hate sex workers? Like, why are you acting like they're being exploited and they're victims? And it's like, no, it's actually possible that capitalism is fucking us all and fucking us all in different ways. And talking about that isn't erasing or excluding sex workers. It's just saying that nothing is unfortunately free from the grasp and control of capitalism.
And the one thing I'd like to add, Catherine, like a while ago you mentioned this, but like there is this big hunger for a platform that is friendly to sex workers. The main issue is that people, or rather the systems that we live in, have purposely devalued sex work, have purposely otherized sex work, and have kind of worked to create this underclass. Not necessarily because it's profitable, because obviously there's a whole lot of money to be made if someone was like, hey, here's a platform for sex workers, and we're just embracing that openly. but largely because catering to a dominant culture or cultural perception tends to be more lucrative than, embracing the other. So in our capitalist system, it's very, very difficult for even people who are motivated by the interests of capital to create such a platform and create that acceptance, even if it would be to their benefit.
So you're asking for a separate, like a separate platform that would be great for sex workers, right? Like maybe a sex workers focused type of platform. However, like there's also segregating yourself from the market, right? So the advantage of using Twitter is that everyone else uses Twitter, right? And so they can more easily stumble upon your content. The advantage of using Tumblr previously is because, well, not everyone, but a lot of people were using Tumblr at the time, right? And so like growing your content kind of just like went along with like a person using that platform. For a separate sex worker focused platform, a person would have to travel there specifically for that. Now, plenty of people will, absolutely. But you are cutting yourself off from a general market if you're not on a general platform. Does that factor in at all? Or do you think still sex workers need a platform? And then, of course, there's other problem that one platform will probably not fill all your needs, right? So it's I mean, maybe, but like, not Joe?
Well, Rara answered your question already. If the platform has support within it that allows you to grow your fan base, you wouldn't need to use things such as Twitter and Instagram and these other things where you actually get no monetary benefit from the work you do on those platforms. So if you had a platform that actually promoted you and helped you and supported you as a sex worker, you wouldn't need to be on those platforms. And I'm sorry. That's like saying people don't Pornhub. Like people will find sex work if they want sex work. Like when I'm on Twitter and I like come across a lewd, I'm not like oh okay, like yes. Like it doesn't necessarily, depending on your network on any of these platforms, it doesn't matter where you post. It's about creating that network, and it would be better to have a platform that helped you do that than trying to diversify and do all this free work across like 8 platforms. I think. I mean, I don't know, but that's...
I'm just looking at it from a marketing perspective, and I feel like even if you had one platform that did that, you would still have to have like a Twitter, like right, you know,
sure. Wait,
all those things as well to expand your base as much as possible. Catherine?
Yeah, so Twitter is an advertising platform, and something like OnlyFans or a theoretical different platform of Pornhub are hosting platforms.
Yeah.
So in the same way that you're on Twitch, you still have a Twitter. The same way if we had a better website than OnlyFans, there'd still be
exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly what I'm saying. Go ahead, Kessbox.
So, yeah, there is like the market difference in the platforms there, but also on top of that, maybe, perhaps, we could just not segregate sex workers from the rest of the workforce and have it easier for them to advertise themselves and have it easier for people to access them and for them to access the healthcare they need, their clients, safe places, security, safe STD testing, etc., 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 etc. Because
careful, because you're starting to sound like a radical leftist.
Good. Because quite frankly, fuck anybody who has such a dipshit view of sex and women's bodies, particularly, because that's where all this comes out of, that they're fucking anti-sex work or a swerve, quite frankly.
Yeah, like, and that's why, like, PrimeCayes, I struggle to remember how to pronounce your name.
Just Prime.
But, like, this is why, like, the issue of having a platform is largely secondary, because first, in order to get that platform anyway, we would need to have a wide movement that would spread acceptance of sex work. This is why,
but also the legislation behind it as well.
Exactly. We would need this wide movement to push for this legislation. We would need to get it. And then once we would get those protections, you know, then it would be largely so much easier to conduct business. Like, there's no reason sex workers should be banned from Instagram. There's no reason that, like, Patreon should be discriminating against sex workers. And, like, also the way sex workers are discriminated against in, like, healthcare and, like, all these other different much more subtle ways where, like, if people aren't directly involved in sex work, it's often very invisible to them. But like we could just not do those things.
Do you all foresee that movement happening, right? Because it's very easy, as Riverboat Jack was just saying, to ignore sex work, right? Very easy to pretend that your neighbors aren't doing it because why would they? All right, like they're normal, right? Like they're not like those people. And so, where is the popular movement to fight for it? How do you foresee that happening in the future? Like, do you think that the groups that are fighting for this right now are doing an effective job, or like what's missing from the movement? Your thoughts on all of that?
I guess if I'll just continue my thought, I think it's largely something that is, or at least should be, inseparable from like the fight for queer rights, the fight for women's rights. Like all of these things are so interconnected that it seems silly to me that these movements, while they have historically included sex workers, have not necessarily put them front and center or included them on like in high profile ways. It's just one of those things where, like, you know, we shouldn't, like, just as we shouldn't be discriminating against someone for who they're interested in sleeping with or what gender they identify as, we also shouldn't be judging people and denying them rights based on how they choose to sell their labor in this regard.
So you're saying the larger movements that are pushing for social change, right? They've already have sex workers on the front lines, and so their needs should be included in those movements as well. And so far, maybe not so much. But yeah, I agree with that. Rara, you had your hand up, and then we'll go to Kez. Rara?
Yes. So I'm sorry, I forgot what the question was. I was like,
I mean, you can comment whatever you like. But I was just be asking, how do you foresee the acceptance of sex work, like coming through within this nation or whatever nation you might happen to be from?
Right. Okay, sorry. I was on like a whole different train of thought, and I was, but I did have an answer for this. Okay. I think there's work happening up all. I mean, I think in the U.S., I can only speak for my own country right now, but I see work happening all over the country by sex worker advocacy groups. The difference, the tipping point that it's going to need to actually tip into the zeitgeist is civilians standing up for sex workers, because it cannot just be sex workers. Like it's historically with any like major social movement, right? Like you've needed allies, you've needed collaborators to get your point across. You need people that are not in the demographics that the groups are fighting for to openly, out loud, and just vocally be in support of it, because that is a very big cultural signifier of change, right? But it also is very powerful. It's very powerful to stand next to somebody who you don't relate to at all as a laborer, or you don't relate at all to their gender identity, or you don't relate to it all to their race, and say, I am here for you. I understand, like, you're struggling. We're going to make it so that you don't have to struggle like this, because it's unfair. So I think any like movement historically, you've had to have people that are not in that demographic be willing to fight for those people. So if you're out there and a sex worker and they're open enough with you, and you have the privilege of knowing that they do sex work, you have that trusted information, you need to be vocally on their side, not just in private and be like, oh, I'm so sorry that this is happening to you and you're struggling with this. That's not advocacy, right? Advocacy is being loud about it and talking about it with people that you don't agree with, and talking about and correcting people when they say harmful shit around you. And I think that's what it's going to take ultimately.
Kez, Box, and Catherine?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I agree with what Rara is saying, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. What I see happening is more, let's bury our heads in the sand and pretend OnlyFans isn't sex work. And I do not see sex work becoming more normalized and accepted unless there is a considerable culture change away from trad wife values and away from quite a lot of the like evangelical Christianity that leaks into normie life, and away from quite a lot of the prudishness and the inability apparently to teach children about sex at all, and away from misogyny. At the end of the day, like, it's going to take a cultural change not only to attitudes about sex but to attitudes about women as well.
Yeah. And this is what I try to talk about, and I'm working on remembering to bring it out all the time and to frame it well, is because like pro-women values are family values. There are all like sex workers have children. Sex workers need to support their children by working the jobs they work. There is a way to reach out across the stupid aisle that we think about so much, especially in America, and say, like, look, we actually want the same things. We want strong families. We want families with 2 or more parents who are able to support their children. And part of that is saying, look, it's okay if they're both men or if they're both women or whoever they are, as long as they're human beings who love their children and give them a strong life, right? And that's how I see a path, at least, towards trying to destigmatize some of these things. And then also what Rara was saying about how people have to sort of like be intersectional and use their privileges to reach out and speak on behalf of others reminded me to do the thing I need to remember to do every time I'm on this panel. We here are allies of BIPOC people, right? Black and people of color. There's not a lot of them who come on this panel. And if you're out there watching, if you know someone like that, you could DM me on Twitch, you could DM me on Discord or Twitter. Reach out to me, tell me about these people so I can reach out to them. We're always looking for more people to come onto this kind of panel and this kind of show to raise those voices up, because Prime has specifically built this channel that he platforms here to help platform more people so that it's not as hard to find women, or especially Black or another people of color or trans women on this gaming platform.
And I would like to add, before I go to Verbal Jack, disabled people. There are a lot of disabled sex workers, and they're often ignored in this movement as well. And this happens to be the best way for them to make money. And so I would just want to let you all know that, there's disabled people who are out there who use these services too. It's a way for them to be independent. So let's not forget them as well. And we'd love to have them on here as well. So, Riverboat?
So I think one of the aspects, like we've talked a lot about capitalism here, and I think that in addition to perhaps being the path forward being like some sort of coalition movement, a social uprising of some kind to change the culture, there's another option here, and I largely think that that option comes down to embracing socialism. I know, weird, the socialist is saying we should embrace socialism, but I think like one of the ways we can reduce or even perhaps eliminate the extreme degree of exploitation going on here could be through like worker co-ops that are for sex workers. Or I think another way we can get through on some of this is that largely a lot of people base their othering of, sex workers or trans people or, whoever the other is considered in the majority of society around like the distribution of resources. And I largely think that, if we decommodify the things that are necessary to live in a modern society, this is something that could go a long way towards addressing these kinds of underlying issues, by overall reducing the amount of exploitation in society and by, providing everyone with the baseline ability to live within that society.
Great. Laura, do you have your hand up? I'm not sure if that's your hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just had my hand up.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I was just very confused. All right, gotcha. So, Kesbox?
Oh, sorry, I forgot I was muted. So one of the things, like, I am myself disabled. Be quiet, please. I deal with chronic pain. You are so noisy. Holy crap. I deal with chronic pain and mental health issues, right? And it wasn't every other day that I would get messages like on the site I used being like, but you're disabled, can you even have sex?
Wow.
It's like, I don't want to say like a word that is like it comes across as misogynistic, even though I've like reclaimed it a bit because I know not everybody is comfortable with it. But I was like, you know, very long drawn out B word, like, I love sex and I'm quite happy having it and I am perfectly capable of having it. I might hurt for a bit afterwards, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Or why would your like wondering why someone would be with you, like a disabled person, as if they're doing charity work, you know? I've heard that from disabled people.
Oh yeah,
There's an attitude that they hear. Yeah, it's something we don't talk enough about on this platform, but we should
there's huge amounts of ableism around sex. Huge amounts.
Yeah.
Like, my other half, as an example, also struggles with chronic pain. His is actually worse than mine is. Basically, his nerves and his muscles are all dying. All over his body. Very slowly. So he's on medication and what have you, and he struggles to stand and get about, and it's getting worse. It's degenerative. And there will be times when we go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months without sex, if not longer, because he just physically can't. He's too tired or he's too sore. And I end up sitting there going, it's me, I'm probably the problem. Because I have that inbuilt, well, couples are supposed to thing. I'm an incredibly randy person anyway, so that doesn't help. But I do have like that inbuilt, oh, well, couples are supposed to. It's a way to be intimate. It's a way to show you love one another, blah, 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 blah. You don't need it. You don't need it for, like, you know, to prove that somebody loves you, right? That's fucking bollocks. Just hang out and spend some time together and stop bloody commodifying sex like it's the be-all and end-all. And, ladies, stop using it as a fucking trading tool.
What does that mean? I don't know what that means, trading tool.
Trading tool. Yeah, so some women will be... Basically, they will manipulate their partners with sex. So their partner decides to do the dishes. A woman will reward that partner with sex. So he unconsciously gets the idea, if I do housework, I'm going to get some.
Yeah, and it's a kind of like emotional manipulation that could be considered abusive, and it's just toxic for society at large.
Yeah, it is, but it's so prevalent, like so prevalent. It's like you give him some every sort of week or two to shut him up. It's like that similar sort of argument, right? And it's housework. It's he's bought me something nice, so I'm going to reward him with sex or whatever. You know, it's always like a reward thing. Sex shouldn't be a fucking reward, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah, it's not like transactional.
Yeah, I feel like, I feel like that there could be a lot of things going into a person who does that, right? Looking into the relationship. This is completely far off, but like I feel like this could also be like a problem with desire and like an imbalance and what you're looking for sexually. This could be a lot of things as to why a person would do such a thing, but that's another topic. Go ahead, Joe.
I just want to say as well, like, before we demonize women who reward men with sex for doing the dishes, can we also have a look at the fact that women are even in the place where they're like, oh, I should reward him to encourage good behavior for doing the fucking dishes. Like, how about
what I said is so prevalent, right?
House.
It's like it's a societal thing. Like it is expected of us.
It's expected from both sides of the normal relationship.
If someone buys me a gift, I'm not like, oh, I'm going to reward them with sex. I'm like, cool, that's the basic fucking relationship
Right,
where I'm
right.
appreciated by my partner.
But it is a very normal part of our society, and the social scripts that we see, especially just in fucking movies, is that you do a big gesture, you buy a big ring after a fancy night out, and then you fuck. And it's something we have to deprogram out of ourselves.
It's very heteronormative. Like,
Yeah,
it is very heteronormative mindset. But also I just think it's funny because when my mind immediately went to kink, because like Catherine, I also participate in financial domination professionally. So my mind went immediately to oh no, if someone sends me money, I get turned on. If someone
Same
like
here,
buys
chat.
me a gift,
Same
like
here.
if someone buys me a gift, like that's a turn on for me. But it's but you know, I think in consensual kink, it's a bit different. There's a little bit more of an established, like if you're in a relationship, you should probably be having that talk that if you are like if you are feeling that way, like you owe someone a sexual favor for doing basic household things, that is not you know, that's not very healthy. But I think the healthy alternative to that, where you talk about it and it's related to like BDSM or female domination, is that you genuinely get turned on by by gifts and shows of gratitude and affection. That's a different story, right? Like, so it's good to have those talks too, because I think there's genuinely people out there. I think there's genuinely submissive men out there who get off on getting women presents and being subservient. And then there's women that get off on being worshipped, like myself. So I think that there's two different conversations there, right? Is like the coerced, misogynist, patriarchal side, and then the BDSM kink, consensual side, right?
So I wanted to add to this, and then we're going to go to final statements on this. We're going to move on to our next topic. So you all get to say your piece. Is that one? I think people also show their love and perceive intimacy in different ways, right? And this is part of like finding the right person for you. Because for some people, really, sex is the way they show love, they feel love, they express love, right? And that's okay if that's what they want. But also, you have to have a partner who can provide that for you. You know, and also, just like if you're feeling that like you're only giving sex as a way to reward a person, right? One, like, please take a look at your relationship. But two, it could also be just a matter of a mismatch of sexual desire. That like you made this is a chore for you too, the sex, right? Like you did a chore for me, now I'm doing a chore for you. And once again, look at your relationship, because I think there might be an issue there. Those are my thoughts. But I want to hear all your thoughts and your final word on this, and try to keep them brief so we can move on. I want to respect everyone's time. All right, so we'll start with Catherine.
Yeah. So my final thoughts are just broadly everything we've talked about, but again, I think this has been an extremely helpful conversation for me, because I have forgotten about certain terms like the hierarchy, because I haven't talked specifically about sex work with leftists in a little while. And just I want to say this is a fucking rad discussion, everybody.
I think so too.
Oh, yeah.
And thank you for coming up with the topic. It was a really good topic. All right, so next we'll go to Castbox.
Okay, I do feel like I need to clarify something just quickly. I'm not shaming anybody for anything, right? That's not the intention here at all. Like, what I'm doing is saying there is a way that a sex life in a relationship is healthy, like a non-BDSM, heteronormative, normie relationship, right? There is a way that a sex life in that relationship is healthy, and then there is a way that it is not. And more frequently, I am seeing the way it is not. And that worries me. It's like that big thing we had all over Facebook last year of, oh, I'm going to catfish him to see if he cheats, or I'm going to...
Yeah.
He's liking someone else's Facebook photos, I'm going to go off because he must be cheating. You know, all that sort of shit. Like, he's not allowed to have female friends. Like, it it seems like one of them leads into the other, and it becomes like an Ouroboros. And that really fucks me off, and it really concerns me, because that is just going to ruin the mental health of hundreds of people and lead to even more fucked up children than we already have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Next, Riverboat Jack.
Yeah. I know we didn't really touch on this a whole lot. I think Catherine did touch on it earlier, but this is why narrative is so important. And I might be a little bit biased because I studied English and history, so narrative is pretty core to both of those disciplines. But narrative's super important, and a lot of the ways that people think and feel about relationships and sex work come directly from like the movies and books that we consume. And I think that largely this is an issue where we need our allies to kind of step up and have these types of conversations, but with, their friends, family, when you're sitting around the Thanksgiving dinner table or something, and like, you're talking about like, the state of the job market or something, maybe think about bringing up like, sex work and like making it a normal point of discussion, so that when sex workers, when we like step up and we talk about it to other people in public, it's not like this weird taboo subject, because that's really the first step before we can actually address the issue on the whole. It has to be something that's within the common lexicon, so to speak.
Okay, thank you. Rara?
Yeah, I'd say just to summarize my feelings about normalization, I think a bit, and I'm just going to echo everyone else's point, is that we just need to encourage our so-called allies and comrades and co-conspirators to step up to the plate a lot more and have these discussions. And if you're not sure of yourself, if you're, like Bela said, it's great to listen to sex workers, because we are very aware of our material conditions. We are very aware of the things that impact our life choices and our futures, and we have to be very aware of policy because it affects our job every single day. So we just need more people involved in the conversation, and I think that's the quickest way to normalize it. I think there's a misogynist way to normalize things, and that is by putting sex workers up on a pedestal and being like, oh my God, you're all queens, you're amazing, you're superheroes. I think that can be very detrimental to people's health, to people's mental health, by painting us with these strokes of otherworldliness. And I think we just need to remind people that we're people impacted by a job market, we're people impacted by policy, and the more people we can have in on that conversation, the better, for sure. And I would love to be friends with all of y'all on Twitter and Twitch, and I'll add y'all because I love this conversation.
I'm really glad you're enjoying it, honestly. Okay, so we'll go to Joe next.
Okay, so I think my basic thoughts have been around this idea of gentrification and exploitation and how these two things interact on OnlyFans. And pretty much what everyone has said. My issue is always this, how platforms seem to conflate with one another, and the work that you're seeing on OnlyFans, which is legitimate, is sort of mixed up with bikini photos on Instagram, and how that allows for the devaluing of actual work. And when it's not valued as work, it allows people to exploit sex workers and take huge margins and not actually value the work that is being put in. I think when it comes to normalization, it's like what has already been said. It's about making sure that it's spoken about by the right people, listening to sex workers. I really hope she's unproblematic as I'm about to say this, but for Australians, like Tilly Lawless is amazing at what she does and how she talks about sex work in an Australian context. So like I definitely recommend following her on platforms if you can. But yeah, there's so many. It's just about listening and thinking about things outside of your own point of view, not just like empathizing or sympathizing, but actually putting yourself in the shoes of other people and thinking, like what realities are facing them. Because like Catherine mentioned earlier, intersectionality, and like intersectionality is something I'm very big on, but for me intersectionality is method. It is a way of thinking. It's not something that you think about. It's not subject. It's a way of thinking. So if I'm thinking about any subject, I might use intersectionality to be like, okay, and if I was a sex worker, how would this change things? And if I was a Black sex worker, how would this change things? And it's about using intersectionality as a method and a way of thinking, and incorporating sex work into your intersectionality, into the way you think about things and analyzing things. Will also ensure that you are having those conversations with people around you, because it's at the front of your mind.
Okay, Bela, at the start of this conversation, it seemed like you didn't have, and correct me if I'm wrong, like you didn't have much of an opinion on this, since you didn't have much experience at all. Has this conversation enlightened you? Like, what are your thoughts, feelings of everything that you've heard?
Well, definitely this has been incredibly informative. Like being able to sit down and like just absorb all the information and learning a bunch of terms that like I really haven't heard before. So like right now I'm just like it's a lot of stuff that I need to do more research into, and you know, better praxis and support of sex work, and making sure that you know y'all are taken care of, because this is kind of ridiculous, and like we gotta so like it needs to be a lot better, and yeah, that's kind of what I'm where I'm at right now. So
Kind of ridiculous. Thank you for showing off the SAT words that you know. Please slow down for my audience. We're on a lower level than you. All right. So, but thank you so much, Bela. Okay. All right. So, before we move on to our next topic, hey, audience, follow me if you have not followed me before. We bring these types of discussions all the time, and with interesting minds, having hopefully interesting discussions. So please give me a follow if you haven't followed me before. If you're not currently subbed, please sub to me. And also, if you can, use that donation donation button below the video to help support this channel. Bits or donation subs are also great. Thank you for everyone who supported me. Thank you, Hypertroller, for gifting me $5 previously. And if you cannot support the channel monetarily, at the very least, you can watch this 30-second ad. Okay, so we'll move on to our next topic.
I actually have to go. It's past my bedtime, and I have to do a bunch of work still before I go to bed. I'm so sorry.
It's all good.
I would love to just have another panel like this, though. This is a very illuminating chat, and I just like it was very heartwarming. This I honestly I came here to fight because I thought I was going to debate, and I found myself agreeing with people. So I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
So I'll be a terrible person next time.
Yeah, pair me up with some like MAGA chut or something.
Yeah, this has been a really lovely conversation.
Yeah.
What you want is Prime stream on any other night of the week. That's what you want.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
But thank you for inviting me, Prime, and yeah, it's lovely meeting you all.
Yeah. I followed you already on everything.
If I can give you any advice this week, stay away from the MAGA chuds. There's so much cope you'll bloody catch it in the air.
I know. I've been avoiding the strip club because of that exact reason. Because I work in a pretty I work like in the Atlanta area, but you know, there's conservative pockets, and my club is during the daytime is very conservative. And I've already had an unironic conversation with someone where they literally were like, "Yeah, if Biden wins, he's gonna put us all in re-education camps," and I'm just like.
Meanwhile,
I need to vote for that.
The
like,
camps in China.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes not laughing is the hardest part of the job.
Oh my god, I literally, I never do this, but I stood up and I walked away mid-sentence, and I was like, I'm leaving.
Well,
anyway, yeah.
This will be reminiscent for them all, like the FEMA camps all white people were put into when Obama was president.
It's true, the Hobbit house.
So
Right.
Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Tell us again, shout out your channel. Tell us about it. Yep.
Oh yeah, so it's twitch.tv/X-Ray Island. The show that I do every week is called Hot Girl Agenda, and it's pretty new. It's a couple months old. I do a weekly stream, but I'm trying to expand it out into doing some other fun femme activities along the way. So yeah, we're just getting started, but I'd love to see y'all there, and maybe I'll do some raids on everyone else's channel when I get a chance. So yeah. All right, I'll see you all later. Bye.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Bye. All right. Cool. So that was really enjoyable. Let's move on to our next topic. All right. So topic 2. Was Biden's choice of Kamala Harris as vice president an example of forced diversity? If so, should it matter? If not, why do you think he chose Kamala Harris in particular? What does it say about the campaign's actual priorities if this wasn't a sincere commitment to inclusion? And credit to Cat Dom for inspiring this question. Okay, so we'll I don't know, we start with Cat Dom again, since this was your idea. Cat, we could hear you before, I think, and maybe.
Wait, here we go.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Yeah, okay. So the framing of the question sort of shows my mindset, right? As far as I can guess at Biden's behavior, especially given the fact that he announced before he picked the person who was going to be his VP that it would be a woman. It seems like an example of forced diversity. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. When you look at some cases of quote-unquote forced diversity, and you can never really tell what's forced diversity and what's not, and even the term sort of doesn't make perfect sense all the time. Having representation in places where it matters works. We could just talk about the Scully effect and the fact that more women decided to become FBI agents after growing up watching X-Files. It happens consistently. It happens all the time. As you destigmatize certain professions for certain groups of people get in there much. When you have a female president, people will be more likely to vote for a woman who happens to be running for president. So there's going to be some amount of good that comes out of it. I definitely think Biden chose Kamala because she was a woman who happened to be Black and has sort of history with the police as a prosecutor. And it was his answer to BLM as a movement. What's it say about the campaign's actual priorities? If it's not a sincere commitment to inclusion, I mean, it's nothing surprising. Every campaign that's being run, especially in America, especially within the two-party system, is doing its best to win and spending millions of dollars and has thousands of people working on winning. And everything is just going towards the win. They're maximizing whatever game theory they're using and making whatever choice they think will get them the most votes.
Sure. All right, so we'll go to our Castbox next. And if we could keep the introductions a little brief so we can move on to the general conversation. Castbox.
Yeah, so Biden actually announced it would be a Black woman specifically before it was announced that he won the primary. So I wasn't really surprised that he picked Kamala Harris. I can't remember if the name of the other woman who was in the running. No,
Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams.
Maybe.
There was a few.
Yeah, the other cop.
I don't think there was another cop. There's Stacey Abrams. Maybe Susan Rice. Amy Klobuchar. Oh, she's another prosecutor. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So it was Amy Klobuchar was the other toss-up that I heard going around a lot at the time, and I think he picked Harris because he knew optically it was the most sensible option, just because of the amount of shit Klobuchar was getting at the time because of her reactions to the BLM protests. Because she was in hot water for months because of that. Just because of how much disdain she had and how much she was ignoring the atrocities of the police. So I'm not really surprised he picked Kamala Harris, just because she was optically better. Let me just refresh myself. I do think it was forced diversity. I don't think it matters, because I don't care who the hell is in, providing they're doing the right things. I don't care if they are a purple bloody people eater, as long as they are doing the right things.
Okay.
In terms of like priorities of inclusion, yeah, they don't have any. They're saving face.
Sure. And quickly with Amy Klobuchar, the problem is that she was tangentially related to a victim, like a cop who had been involved in brutality and all that. There was a whole story about that. Like, so she was like tangentially related to like a case.
Yeah, she
and her
covered up for
reaction
like a
there was
load
pretty.
of his stuff.
Yeah, it was pretty terrible. But okay. So Bella.
Oh boy. Yeah, so I remember watching the debate when it was Biden and Sanders, and they were talking about their VP picks, and I remember being very infuriated when they put Sanders in the corner on this, because Biden immediately said he would have a black woman, and Sanders is like, well, because, you know, he cares about policy. So my whole takeaway from all of this, I think it was incredibly performative. It was definitely to save face. It was... and it was really aggravating for it to be like, well, I'm going to find someone in this demographic, as opposed to how about I'm going to find someone who actually can do the fucking job. Because like I really care about like, hey, what are you going to actually do, as opposed to how do you look, or like what category do you fit in, right? Like kind of what Kezit said, you can be a purple people eater, and I wouldn't care as long as you have good policy. So it's, do I think, I've read over some of her stuff. I think that like she's pretty capable. Optics, she was definitely picked for optics. But despite my kind of like feels of like, wow, that was kind of lame, as opposed to trying to like pick someone for like actual like policy. I'm still hopeful though, because representation is important, and you know, for young girls of color especially, who see her, they're not thinking about like the policy aspect or anything like that. They just want to see themselves represented, and that's going to raise a whole nother generation of like activists and like just women involved in politics, which is really important. So I just hope she doesn't screw it up. You know, that's my big thing. I'm like, just here's hoping she doesn't just be a cop, you know. That's what I got.
I'm so thankful that this is turning out to be a pro-cannibalist stream. Something we haven't really touched on here before, but I think cannibals should be included in these platforms, and I'm glad you all are so accepting. All right,
especially
go ahead.
purple ones.
Especially purple ones, right? They're often left out, even in the pro-cannibal movement. Riverboat Jack.
So first off, I guess I would challenge the framing of the question as like forced diversity. Like what does that even mean technically? Like I tend to think forced diversity is something that doesn't actually exist. What people often tend to mean by forced diversity is like our systems of capital influence the way that we hire people as like a performative gesture, or like to increase like the value of our optics. But that's largely to appeal to larger groups of people. Like that, this is one of the few things that capitalism does relatively well, which is you want to appeal to as many people as possible, and so there is this incentive to therefore diversify your forward-facing people at the very least. And so while I don't necessarily think this is forced diversity in any kind of like, it might maybe it's liberal cringe. I'll give it that. We can call it liberal cringe. How about that? But I don't think it's like forced diversity. And should it matter? I do think that it does matter, actually. Like, largely because I think if we buy into the idea of forced diversity, we buy into kind of this framing that comes from the right, wherein, this is a hypocritical, cynical take. And, I don't necessarily think that anyone involved in the Joe Biden campaign is necessarily that cynical. This might be something that genuinely reflects their beliefs, because, again, like we talked about the Scully effect, Catherine, or you can look at, like, the entire history of, like, the tech sector, for example. Like, women used to be the programmers because it was the high-profile job of men to work on the hardware. And then men, like, throughout the 1960s, gradually came into programming, pushed women out, and then you can kind of see throughout the 80s and 90s that then tech became primarily marketed towards men. It's like, it's a whole thing that happens over time. So this could be, like, a great opportunity to inspire a lot of, like, Bela said, like, a lot of, like, a up-and-coming generation. And I don't think that that's necessarily bad. But then, to Kez's point, like, it really matters if she can do the job. And largely, I think that Kamala Harris, while definitely not being my choice, is a capable politician, and largely a politician that I think, as opposed to Joe Biden, she's a politician that we could hopefully, over time, push towards the left to more progressive policies, seeing as she has a longer career ahead of her in politics and probably has aspirations to become the president of the United States. So, yeah, I largely don't think, I think it's immaterial if this was a sincere commitment to inclusion, since the effects are largely the same.
Okay, interesting. I'm liking how this is shaping up, because I can already see interesting lines of kind of conflict, but of a disagreement. Silly serious.
Well, firstly, I have an issue with diversity is the language of capitalism in and of itself. So I have an issue with that. Secondly, it really annoyed me when Joe Biden said that he would pick a woman, because I felt like you have all of these women presidential nominees on stage. You have an entire political party filled with capable women. You don't need to announce that you're going to pick a woman. Just pick a woman, because when you say I'm committed to picking a woman, you are saying I am picking a woman because she is a woman, not because she is a capable politician, not because I think she has something to offer politically, but purely because she is a woman. I mean, on some level, I think when systems are broken on matters of equality, you need something that's like going to shock the system and do a reset. That's where I think affirmative action measures, quotas, forced diversity, I think that is helpful. My issue is what it always is. I dislike politics that is based on aesthetic rather than actual ideology, a methodological critique of systems of power. And my concern with Kamala is really that I think she's a very competent politician. I'm not knocking her political capabilities. However, we have gone back to the politics of 2012, the politics that created an arena for Trump.
Yeah.
And we haven't. Yeah, and so what we need to be preparing for is a situation where a more capable Trump-like figure comes into play and challenges for the presidency. And the direction that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, but Kamala Harris, because we know that Joe Biden is unlikely to contest a second term, and Kamala will be put in as the presidential nominee. And my issue with that is we should have won this election by a lot more. I'm not American, but like the election should have been won by a much larger margin. It wasn't, because the party is I don't know, a party that's working towards, I will talk about this in the next question, but a party moving towards democracy, as if that's anything ideological. It has no ideological base outside of aesthetics. And so I don't know if Kamala Harris has the ideological rigor to hold off an opponent that has the same sort of populist appeal as Trump, with more competency. And I don't like the direction that she takes the party. She challenges Joe Biden on busing and then drops it when she becomes the VP. Like, it just shows that her commitment to issues is aesthetic and superficial, and she will use them to do whatever she needs to do, and I'm not sure that will stand the test of time. We're back in this politics that created Trump. It's likely to create another Trump, and we need a Democratic Party that has more ideological rigor.
So, Joe, you're wrong on one thing. Kamala Harris dropped her objection to the school busing incident with Joe, like almost immediately. I believe it was the next day or the day after, where she was asked about it by a reporter. And she said, "Oh no, I mean, I guess that it makes sense. I would have made a similar decision."
Exactly, but that's what I mean.
Exactly. Yeah, she didn't wait to become VP. Is my only point. That happened long ago. No. She dropped her support for Medicare for All. She raised her hand during the debate, right? When they asked about Medicare for All, and then when asked about it later, she goes, "Were they asking about Medicare? I thought they were talking." This is literally what she said. I thought they were talking about something else. I didn't hear. No, no, not me. M4A, no thanks. Yeah, she's backtracked on lots of things, and I'm gonna stop now because I'm gonna fucking go off if I don't. Yeah, so I think this is really interesting. And I'd also like to say quickly, is that Bernie Sanders, though, he also did the same thing. He also said he was going to pick a woman for VP if he was nominated, right? He made that very clear.
To a corner, right?
Sorry, excuse me?
Because Joe Biden got up on stage and was like,
Biden
I'm going to pick a woman. Will you? Are you going to do it?
Yeah, like Biden got to answer first, and he's like, I'm going to pick a black woman. And then Bernie's just here like...
The question was, are you going to pick a woman, though? It wasn't just who are you going to pick or what gender are they or... Are you going to pick a woman? Because they were getting both of them were getting an awful lot of outside pressure and internal pressure from the party to pick a woman.
But it's just so frustrating as someone who can obviously read Bernie Sanders' mind that obviously the answer he wanted to give is, I will pick the candidate that will do the best policies for women. I will make sure I pick a candidate to create a cabinet that will have the best outcomes for women. But we just know that the people watching the debate would have been like, he won't pick a woman. He wouldn't commit to picking a woman.
To admit that a woman's capable of the job.
Wait. Like, that's all well and good, but you cannot, like, sit there and be like, oh, well, Bernie was backed into a corner, and then also say, oh, but Biden. And complain about Biden doing it when they both did the same thing.
Yeah, but
Biden jumped on that question away. He immediately was like, absolutely, I'm picking a black woman.
Yeah, but he did that because of the amount of pressure he was getting from outside and from inside the party.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't a thing that he just decided to do of his own merit. It was something he was backed into a corner to do. It's something they were both being backed into a corner to do.
And that's the larger problem is that the neoliberal politics practiced by both the major parties are politics of identity politics. And it's this framework that all the media outlets and all the pundits and lots of the voters want to see things through and demanded specifically that, both Biden and Bernie saw things through.
Joe, did you want
I think my argument, and
I was asking you to respond. Go ahead.
Oh, me. Okay. Yeah. I think my argument is, as well as I'm not I love Bernie, but I'm an orb lady. I'm for Marion. But when it comes to my differentiator between Biden and Bernie is that Bernie has had a really long political career, which he has had such integrity through in his commitment to different causes. And I cannot say the same of Biden. And I just think that you could see in the moment that Biden had already decided that he was going to say what he said in that debate. And you could see that Bernie was like, I am fucked right now. You could see it in the debate. It wasn't the same.
So Biden hadn't decided, his campaign manager had decided. Biden memorized it.
Sure, but it's his
hang on, let me finish.
Campaign.
Hang on. They still have to do what their campaign manager says. Trust me, my other half has run for office. You have to do what your campaign manager says or you're sacked. Even if you're running, they will find a way to push you out. If you're running for any kind of office anywhere. It's bizarre.
It's the system, the DNC in general and the campaign managers and the...
So on top of that as well, you also have... Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying entirely. Yes, Biden has been a complete and utter useless bastard throughout most of his career. I am well aware of this. Bernie has not. However, it is, I feel, unfair to target Biden specifically for something they were both backed in a corner to do. Like, there are plenty of things you can criticize Biden for, but it does not feel fair to me to criticize Biden and go, oh yeah, but it's Bernie. You know?
Riverboat Jack. And okay, we'll go to Jack.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, largely, maybe this makes me a bit naive, but I actually I would prefer to work with someone like Kamala Harris, who is largely spineless when it comes to holding her positions, because I think she's going to do anything she needs to do out of political expediency, right? And I think in the future, going forward, that's only something that can play into our benefit as leftists, right? Like, the vast majority of this country supports, for example, Medicare for all. Like a lot of these policies that are considered like leftists, the majority of people in this country support. And largely when it comes to like Joe Biden, I think Joe Biden represents kind of this last gasp of the old guard. This last attempt to use this fake identity politic aesthetic in place of actual policy, because whoever comes after Trump, whoever is going to follow in the footsteps of Trump, is going to come offering something. And it's not going to be enough, but it will be more than a neoliberal Democrat is willing to offer. And so I think for any politicians who want to survive going forward, who are Democrat or left of Democrat, they're going to have to actually provide something that tangibly benefits people's lives. And that mostly, for the most part, was the main thing operating against Biden in this election. And it's one of the main things that differentiates him from Bernie in this election as well, because Bernie had a plan, Medicare for all, that would have tangibly improved the lives of literally millions of people across this country. And Biden's concessions to that still help less millions of people, but millions of people if you're 60 years old, I guess. That does still help a considerable number of people. It's just not as nearly as many as like a Medicare for all plan. And I think minor concessions like that going forward are not going to be anywhere near enough to maintain power.
Okay. So all right. I'm not going to focus on them. I'll leave it alone. But this Kamala Harris. Earlier, you said that that it doesn't matter if she's a quote unquote diversity pick or not, right? If the effects are the same, right? So what are those effects? What can you expect from a Kamala Harris that you wouldn't have gotten from someone else? Some of the other establishment Democrats that were up for the position.
Right.
Prime, can I suggest that we sort of blend in topic 3 now and address them together? Because topic 3 is like, what are we hopeful the Biden administration will advance in general and specifically with women and LGBT? And we could
work on my schedule too, because I gotta help with grandma going to bed in a little bit. So
sure, go ahead.
So I tend to think that like Kamala Harris, while far from being anywhere near my pick, her history of voting is generally more leftist than most of the other Democrats in the Senate. She has had good policies before, and she's expressed the willingness to embrace something like Medicare for all, which I think does definitely differentiate her from other establishment Democrats, especially given that the blowback after the election now is like establishment Democrats calling each other on the House caucus and being like, they're saying the word socialism to us. Oh no! Like, I think the willingness to at least at first embrace these policies is something that goes in her favor. But as far as what a Biden administration is going to do in terms of like women, LGBTQ people, beyond abortion and gay marriage. Largely, I think that we're not going to see like huge strides by any means. But what I would expect to see is maybe more concrete policy solidifying like the legal protections for trans people. I would expect to see, some sort of like paid family leave plan going through, stuff like that. It's not, again, things that are better than what we have, but not nearly enough. And I think that that's basically the slogan of the Biden administration. Better than what we have, but not nearly enough.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to remember that like this vice presidency is Kamala Harris's submission to become president.
Yeah.
So while Biden is old and he might not have a lot of interest in getting real substantive change done, despite his fucking awesome official platform, which is further left than any other platform we've had from a president-elect, right? Kamala does want all this to be accomplished because, like, you saw it with Biden throughout the campaign. Is like, look, you didn't do this when you were vice president. You didn't do that when you were vice president. Why should we vote for you? Well, guess what? Kamala is going to try to get some stuff done that really needs to be done, and she was sort of picked to come in and fix BLM. So the things I expect to be done is something to address the issues brought up by BLM, something to, especially with Biden, sort of like re-enshrine the ACA or try to re-expand the fact that trans people get access under the ACA to healthcare, things like that.
So it feels like to me that so much of what's discussed on the left, at least here in the States, maybe it's different in other countries, but in the States, we are always in a defensive crouch, right? And so I'll read you that second question, or the third question, which we're mixing into this. And because it's kind of like the angle I wanted to come at this, right? So topic 3 was going to be, are you hopeful that the Biden administration will advance the agenda of women and the LGBT community besides simply defending abortion and gay marriage? What would you like to see out of this administration? What do you think is likely? So when I was writing that question, like, I was just reminded of how on the left, we're constantly simply defending, right? We're defending civil rights, right? The right to vote, certainly. We're defending wins that oftentimes are decades old rather than actually pushing things forward, right? To going, new unexplored places, right? Like, for instance, the sex work agenda, right? Like, that's like not even on the table, right? We don't discuss those things.
Right.
So what I'm asking is, like, do you foresee any new ground being covered, right? Or will it be just like fighting Republicans and holding on to what we have by our fingernails? We'll go to Jack, then we'll go to Joe, and then Bela.
So the one thing I will add on top of what Catherine just said is that this is like Kamala's audition to become president, largely, at least in the eyes of the establishment. However, what we also need to remember is that there's a fairly good chance that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is going to run in 2024. She'll be just old enough, and she has the name recognition. I think she has built up a good amount of political capital to enable some kind of run. In a sense, she would be taking on the mantle of Bernie Sanders, and she has displayed a willingness to embrace these socialist policies that establishment Democrats largely have eschewed. So I think that there's a really good chance that, even if Kamala Harris does get like establishment support to make her the candidate, she's going to have to adopt some meaningfully leftist platforms in order to gain victory in the primary. So I think that these are things that should give us at least some degree of hope going forward. And I don't want anyone to be doomering in chat over these developments, even though they're not as good as we would hope. So I just wanted to throw that out there. You know, we're part of an evolving political narrative, and there's still a whole lot that could happen going forward that could improve our position. You know.
Okay, Joe, then Bela, and then Catherine.
Do you mind if I give what my intro statement would have been to this question, because it just helps clarify a lot of my thoughts on it? Because when I was reading your question, for me, the big thing I really thought about was the lionization of Stacey Abrams and how quickly the left is willing to abandon leftist political vision in order to be the party that has no direction other than democracy. And so a party like that will cozy up to people like Mike Bloomberg when it's politically expedient, regardless of record or integrity. And that's when you're going to really have trouble, when that other person, that Trump figure who's competent, comes in to play. I'm not saying that we can't walk and chew gum at the same time. Obviously we can fight for democracy. But there's a really good book called Politics Without Politics by Jodi Dean, and she explains why democracy as a frame for the left doesn't work. Firstly, because the right also speaks the language of democracy, the invasion of Iraq, the fact that conservatives aren't included in mainstream media, or conservatives are excluded from the academic academy, or God is excluded from political conversation, and Slavoj Žižek sort of refers to this as victory and defeat, right? When your opposition adopts your language and your sort of frame, you no longer have any point of critique or resistance because it's been subsumed. And of course, democratic language around democracy reinforces the rhetoric of capitalism. To not be doomer, I do think there are some things that we might see from Joe. Joe has a really strong idea in his head of who he is. He's this working class guy from Scranton, wherever Scranton. And so when he finds that he's made a position that goes against his view of himself, he will walk it back. So the Anita Hill hearings, where he fucked up so badly, he needed to prove that he wasn't a sexist, so he worked really hard to pass the Violence Against Women Act. He worked to correct his fucking faux pas on the bankruptcy legislation. So when his actions collide with his self-conception, he tries to clean up his messes. He could do a much better job, but that gives me hope, at least, that if he really clues into this, that there might be something good. And also, he's not this is not a dig, I'm not trying to be rude, but he's not smart in the same way that a lot of people in politics are smart. The amount of criticism that the Obama campaign apparently even made about him, keeping him out of press, and Joe can't do anything, Joe will fuck it up. He doesn't have the political wit that a lot of political actors have. And so what he does is he keeps a representative sample of his constituents in his head. He stepped out in front of Obama on gay marriage. He came out in support of gay marriage before Obama as vice president, which is crazy. And he did it because he was oh, I met some gay people and they were nice. That's people really have the ability to change Joe Biden's mind, which I think is really promising. And also, because he's not a Democratic Party favorite, because he hasn't spent a long time developing these deep relations with donors, and because he's less likely to run for re-election, he's not going to spend time with the rich elite like Obama and Clinton. He's not going to be as pulled by those factors. So I think there is hope that we can have these small moments of courage within a Biden administration. But I think the Democratic Party will still be focused on affluent suburbanites and will continue to marginalize the working class, which sucks. And as I said, it's a return to 2012. It's not a brand new leftist utopia. So there are things to be positive about, but ultimately we have this political party that's devoid of a working ideology, which means that we can't expect anything great. Sorry.
No, what? Joe, you read from my mind. You read from my soul just then. You were amazing. Thank you so much for that. And going off your point of Biden failing to actually clean up his messes perfectly, what he could have actually done is apologize to Anita Hill, which he certainly did not, but lied about. Oh
yeah,
okay.
no.
I
still believe in the hill. Yeah.
Okay. Bela, you had your hand up previously.
Yeah, and I'm after I say my bit, I'm gonna have to go because just helping family out. So I'll also wrap up with like my social plugs too. Sorry for keeping it short. Like I after the divorce moved in with my dad, and I have to help out with my grandmother because I have a place to stay, but I have to help out. So anyway, so how to summarize everything, I agree with Joe that yes, Biden we can push him, and that is what matters. Do I think he's going to go and like really think about people on his own? No, like we're going to have to go and be loud and be activists and be like, hey, this really matters to us, and we need to have policy for this now. I don't think it's something where we can just be like, oh yes, we have Biden elected, and now I can sit on my hands and everything goes back to normal. It's like, no, because normal is what got us Trump. So we can't go back to that shit. That's not allowed. No. Like, if we're going to actually be getting some stuff done, like, we have to keep up with the movements with BLM, with the Green New Deal, with Medicare for All. Like, we need to... We can't just... What's the meme where it's like, I choose not to see? Like, we can't do that. We can't just go and be like, I choose not to see. And I really hope that, the biggest takeaway from everyone like in chat is just that we need more praxis than we do performance at this point. Like just no more like performative, like, oh yes, blah, blah, blah. Like there's a place for posting on social media and all this, but there needs actual praxis. And that means getting out in the streets, volunteering, running for your local office if there's no representation for yourself, and like forcing this administration to pass policy that is going to benefit your communities and your neighbors. It just gotta do the good work, As far as what I expect, I mean, as y'all know, my biggest thing is climate justice. So as far as the Green New Deal, I'm really, really hoping for that. And, I'm going to be out in the streets for that once it's pretty good. Once we have those Fridays for the Future marches again, that's where I'm going to be at. And I'll go ahead and segue into a plug for this thing because I'm getting like text from my dad. So tomorrow on my stream, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, we're actually going to be reading through completely verbatim Joe Biden's climate plan that is available on his website. So if y'all want to join my cozy climate community tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, we will be actually sitting down and reading policy. Oh my God, who would have thought? So you can read things on the internet and understand people's platforms.
You can read policy? What? I thought policy was just something we talked about and made up as we went along.
Yeah, no, it's not just these random strings in the air. It's actually available online. Anyway, so we're going to be completely reading through Biden's climate plan. We read his Build Back Better plan about a month and a half ago, and we're going to go read his like newly updated climate plan. So you can find me at twitch.tv/Bela. My Twitter is @BelaTV. And yeah, y'all are awesome. Thanks again for inviting me. Again, I'm sorry for needing to bounce a bit early and not really having much to contribute to like the first part of the conversation, but I do look forward to future roundtables with y'all, and it's good to be back. So.
Yeah, it was lovely meeting you.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Bela's link is in the chat. Please, everyone, go check her out. We really appreciate her coming through for us today. Have a wonderful day. Kezbox, thank you. Kezbox, I understand you need to dip as well. Would you?
I do. I have a very grumpy small human that needs his sleep and is refusing to sleep independently. Because instead, he's discovered how to shrug most of his straps out of his swing off, so he wants to see how much he can swing without falling out.
So, yeah. So, tell us about your channel.
Yeah, I'm Kezbox. I cover disability rights, queer rights, feminism, intersectionality, parenting, gender, politics, I yell about reactionaries a lot. I play video games. I talk shit. I shitpost. I meme. In terms of just like a wrap up to the question, if he'll ever be quiet, I don't expect very much. I hope that maybe Biden will like repeal Trump's removal of like healthcare and housing protections for trans people.
Be nice.
But I'm not. It would be, but I'm not expecting it. I'm cynically hopeful, we'll say.
Yeah.
I'm cynically hopeful.
Yeah.
I do agree that he's easier pushed, but I don't think, as flip-floppy as she is on the right-hand side of things, I don't think Kamala will be on as easily pushed to the left. I think all we can do now is cross our fingers, hope, and ban ourselves from brunch. Thank you very much for having me, Prime. I had quite a lot of fun. I'm sorry to have to dip early.
No problem. Kesbox's links in the chat. Everyone go check it out.
I will see you all later. It was nice to meet those of you I hadn't previously.
Nice to meet you as well.
Always good to hang out with you.
Have a good night.
Have a good one. Bye.
Joe.
Oh no. Hi.
What? Are you okay? Are you surprised I'm calling on you?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it. Okay, go.
I wanted to expand on what you were saying about the Democratic Party not having an ideological base, and maybe it does, but maybe it's just that we don't like what we see there, right? We have a party that has consistently supported Wall Street, right? Has been bought out by Wall Street. We've seen a massive influx of that cash, and they've defended it. Like Wall Street has gotten their money's worth, and Wall Street has been excited, like ecstatic, to see them. I think Goldman Sachs, like the first time, like they endorsed Biden, like endorsed a Democrat, right? They're very happy with what they're seeing coming out of there, and ecstatic that Bernie Sanders didn't make it. They were so worried about Bernie Sanders, right, that they were supportive of not one, but two billionaires who came into the party previously. Thank you for the raid. Oh, holy crap.
Wow.
Whoa.
Benjamin Dixon, thank you.
Ben Dixon.
That's really kind of you, Ben. Holy crap. Everyone, go check out Benjamin. Hey, everyone. Sorry, I gotta do the streamer thing. Hi, people. My name is Prime. Right now, we're doing our Amazon Lily roundtable where we present femme voices and talk about politics or whatever. And we have a good time. We have a lot of interesting voices that we put up on this platform. And so this is just one of the panels that I do. We also regularly do a panel where audience members can take part. So we have open walk-on panel. So if you want to jump in and yell at us about something, we'd love to have you, no matter where you're on the political spectrum. So thank you all for being here. If you haven't already, please join these fine people here and follow me. You know, peer pressure is a good thing sometimes, and do that. I really appreciate Ben coming through with that. That was really, really kind of you. So thank you. We're gonna continue on with this panel. This is fantastic. Yeah. So we were.
Yeah.
And well, we were.
I have an answer for you. I have an answer for you, which is that you think you're disagreeing with me, but you're actually not.
I wasn't. I didn't disagreeing with you. I don't.
No.
But I didn't pose a question.
No, but you said that you think that the Democratic Party does have an ideological base. We just don't like it, right? And what I'm saying is, what you're talking about, the sort of corporatism and the pandering to Wall Street, is evidence of a lack of a left ideological base that isn't grounded in a methodological leftist point of view, and instead by a Democratic Party which frames its goals around democracy that allows for this politically expedient sort of cozying up to Wall Street. Because as long as they can say that they're trying to, this Stacey Abrams sort of like getting people to vote, it's all about democracy, it's all about securing democracy. Democracy is ideologically void. It's something that is occupied by both sides of politics. And so from a distance, you're like, yeah, of course democracy is a great goal. But it is this focus on democracy that allows them to get away with having absolutely no leftist ideological core at the moment.
Right. But
I just want to respond to this quickly. Like, I see exactly what you're saying. Previously, you said that, like, well, part of the problem of using democracy, right, is because the right uses democracy to uses that framing. I'm saying what we're looking at is a center-right party, right? So of course they would ape some of the things we see on the right because they are closer to them than they are to the left, right? Why would there be a leftist core to this party when the establishment
because they're not leftist
is center right? Exactly. So,
but that's what, I mean, we're saying the same thing because this is what I was talking about when I talked about Zizek and victory and defeat. This idea of like when your opponent starts using your language and your framing, you have no point of critique or resistance. It's all subsumed. So this idea of inclusion and diversity and all of like inclusion and participation are things that the right aim for as well. They want different people included. They want different people participating, but it's very much part of their language as well. So there's no tension, right? In that there's no adversity in the opposition, which is required, particularly in a two-party system.
Right.
And you're right.
And
when earlier, no, go, Catherine. Sorry.
Yeah, this is what Trump brought in the last election. Is he brought in populist politics that Bernie wasn't able to get into the presidential election, and so lots of people, including Bernie supporters, lots of people who are disenfranchised and aren't racist or maybe didn't start out racist before they started following Trump and got radicalized, went over there because what they want is substantial change. And this sort of relates back to what you asked specifically after introducing the third topic, Prime, is if our friend CTV was here, he would say the point of the American project, the point of the Constitution, is that the left is supposed to always be in a defensive posture. The left is supposed to be just barely eking out change and defending that change, because that's what America is about, is all these checks and balances. As a non-American, I don't particularly like that, but that is the American project. And it's not a surprise, it's not radical or something you should be shocked by, that we just barely get tiny changes after fighting for them for 40, 60, 100 years, and that we have to keep defending them. And then also, when you talk about the base of the Democratic Party, it's not just Wall Street, because Wall Street isn't voters, right? You have a voter base, and the voter base of the Democratic Party is urban elites, people who are doing fairly well, and they really like the idea of social welfare in their capitalism because it makes them feel less guilty about their wealth, right? And slowly they come into contact, often through fucking like taking over some neighborhood, right? They come in contact with queer people or Black people or trans people, and they're like, you know what, my mind's changed a little bit. Let's actually change our society a little bit. Let's throw out a hand crumb of rights to these people that I now realize are also humans. And this is the base at the center of the Democrat Party, and especially the rhetoric. And similarly, if you look at the Republicans, their base is rural people who happen to be mostly white. And this core divide of rural versus urban is the divide between any two-party system in the kind of nations that have existed for the past 2,000 years.
Well, I would just say it doesn't have to be that way.
And it doesn't
have to be that way. And I think that largely the way that we as, you know, I don't know all of your political predilections, apologies, but like for me as like a socialist, I'm out here saying, well, I think largely this is an issue because the Democratic base in general tends to have devoided itself of a lot of underlying principles. This is an opportunity for socialists to come in and be like, hey, I'm going to make a really reasonable argument to you that you should have fundamental rights to certain things, and that we should have democracy in the workplace. Like, you know, you can come in and present these arguments, that can convince people in this way, because I think at its core, socialism applies not just to like lefties. Socialism is something that benefits people on the right, people on the left. It's something that benefits working people. And there are working people in the Republican Party, there are working people in the the Democratic Party, and we should be trying to get these people largely on board with these programs. Now, I'm not going to say that other divides don't exist as well beyond class. I'm not a class reductionist in this regard, but I do think that we can come in and be like, hey, you want your life to be better, right? We can do that. We can make your life better, like tangibly better. And I think that will resonate with a lot of people, especially given that we're going into a future wherein, we have a mass pandemic that probably isn't going away anytime soon. We have a massive economic downturn, and we are facing the precipice of a climate crisis that will dislodge hundreds of millions of people around the world, if not billions of people. And we need to have these systems in place, otherwise our entire society will collapse. So, like, on top of the economic, like, expediency and, like, necessity of it on a long-term basis, I think on a short term, the benefits that we can give people are overwhelming, and something that, once in place, would be incredibly hard to remove. Even the not far enough, like, welfare policies that we have proven to be incredibly resilient. The Affordable Care Act, that was a Romney-based plan. It came out of the Mitt Romney think tank, and even a Republican supermajority couldn't find the ability to remove it. So, like, the Affordable Care Act is definitely not enough. But I think it proves that these systems, once we're able to implement them, can withstand the test of time and a variety of economic forces.
Okay, Joe, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, I actually have a question. Because obviously in an Australian context, we're a lot further to the left, and our left wing, I would say, has a stronger driving ideology. And I guess part of that is to do with the entrenchment of the union movement within our left party, like the union movement have an actual political power within the party. And I always find it funny because whenever I bring up unions, Americans in the chat are like, oh my God. Like, and I'm interested in what the history, like, I mean, obviously not the whole history, but why is there such tension around the union movement in America? Because it's a real easy way in Australia to ensure a strong working class drive.
Essentially, to kind of condense it a bit, essentially we had a strong unionization effort in America throughout, like, the 1950s and 1960s, and then in, like, the 70s, under, like, Nixon, Reagan, presidents like this, our unions began to disintegrate and fall apart, largely as a result of, like, propaganda campaigns, and people who were doing well as a result of union policies began to see unionization and union dues and union power as something that was negatively impacting their lives, and so people stopped believing that unions were a fundamentally good thing in the United States. And so largely today, on top of the like, flight of capital to move factories to other countries, largely the only unions that exist right now that have any sort of sweeping power or considerable power are, like, teachers unions, though they're diminished from what they once were, police unions, and like, as far as I know, that's pretty much it. So that's why, by the way, I advocate for a system for us to embrace worker co-ops, because I think largely the well has been poisoned in the United States against unionization. And so we should instead have a system wherein we transfer to worker co-ops or encourage the development of worker co-ops, and that way we can have essentially a union company hybrid.
And I think there's actually some real benefits to a co-op in that, like, combination of company and union. It's okay, sure, if unions are poisoned, fine, we don't need them, because, like, having that separate entity as an in-between in capitalism means that entity is always going to scrape some amount of profit out of the middle. And yeah, it's way better to control it directly.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, thank you for that, Jack. I wanted to ask, and Jack, where are you based out of? Are you States or?
Yeah, I live up in the cold north. I live in Minnesota.
Okay. All right.
And yeah, I mean, like, I think this is largely, I think the idea of worker co-ops largely has a lot more acceptance in rural areas, specifically because rural people tend to have the ability to form worker co-ops more easily than people who are participating in like a city-based service economy. Because farmers tend to have like the capital necessary to band together to form a worker co-op, so they're more common out here, you know.
Yeah. I just wanted to check in and see where you were from. Making sure you weren't Canadian, but you're Canadian adjacent, which
I mean, allowed. We're either a Canadian state or a U.S. province, one or the other.
I promise you I won't hold it against you. Okay.
Look, Prime, the Queen is coming for you. You got to stop out the sacrilegious talk against Canada, okay?
Never. Okay, so I wanted to ask our foreign friends. First of all, thank you for being here. No comment, Chick. Appreciate it. I wanted to ask our foreign friends, though. Where do you see the left being pushed, right? In your nations, right? Like, where is the movement now? Where are the frontiers that you'd like to go? I imagine they'd be much different than here, because like so often in states, like we're just fighting for like Medicare for all, right? But like you guys have already covered that, right? So we're fighting for sex workers to be able to perform their craft. That's a weird way of putting things. But I believe in Australia and Canada, you've already leveled that. But there might be more advancements to go there. But in any case, where are the frontiers in your particular nations?
Yeah, so I don't follow much Canadian politics. I'm kind of spiritually an American because I do this all the fucking time, these panels and stuff.
Oh, are you next to Minnesota? Or is that where you are? I'm kidding.
I'm in the south of Ontario. Well, the vast majority of Canadians live on our southern border. Like, we are mostly right next to America.
I know you all want to be Americans very badly.
Pining for us.
No, I want America to be more like us, and so I spend my energy trying to do that. Because basically, we're like America, but 10 years later, and with less fight about gun laws, probably similar to Australia. And one of the biggest things that I'm aware of fighting from the left is just constantly, hey, government, stop abusing Native people. That's like the main thing that I, at least, see a lot about Canadian politics. Fucking pipelines going through Native populations, fucking people being tortured in hospitals just because they happen to be Native. It's disgusting, and yeah, that's what I see a lot of.
Joe?
Look, there's a lot to be done here. I mean, and our issue is, I guess, and it's something that I guess happens a lot of the time in any two-party system. There are no more votes to get, right? Everyone is voting. There's compulsory voting here, which means that often our left party does quite abhorrent things, and often our left party sides with our right party. I don't know what to tell you. I guess that the next frontier, like for me personally, I'm very invested in the politics around treaty. So working with Indigenous Australians to get them a voice in Parliament. So for me, that is the next frontier. But I think climate change in Australia, the fact that we live in the kind of landscape that we have, and we are dealing with the sort of environmental crisis that we are dealing with, and yet our parties, both left and right, still make inexplicable deals with oil giants and huge energy companies. And Australia should be the country that is on the forefront of climate change, that is on the forefront of renewable energy. There is no excuse for us not to be leaders in that field, and we're just like not even close. And constantly, anytime you tune into our parliament, you are just disappointed time and time again. It is NAIDOC week here, which is a really important week for connecting with Indigenous Australian culture, acknowledging the part that they play in our society, acknowledging our history. And literally our parliament just voted down flying the Aboriginal flag at Parliament House. They voted against it. And so it's really hard. Like when I talk about Australia being left, I mean slightly comparatively to the shit show that you guys have over there, because we really take your lead on a lot of things. But there is so much work to do, particularly for me. My interests lie in climate change, in getting the appropriate recognition and acknowledgement of Indigenous Australians, and sorting out, I mean, also the same issues that we've had everywhere. Like for you guys too, we're in an economic crisis too. The social supports that have been available for Australians have not been enough. The way that the economic recovery has been sort of organized has not been enough. The fact that, you know, like we even just had our there's a whole thing for, which is investigative journalism here. They just did a bit on like all of the conservative politicians who pushed against gay marriage in Australia. Now all this shit is coming out about them, like having affairs with younger staff members and stuff. And it's like, they're saying, oh, we have a right to a private life. And yet if you're on welfare, there's an expectation that you'll be completely transparent about your sex life, and who you're having sex with then determines whether or not you're eligible for economic support. And it's just the country is constantly looking for ways to, like, how much can we bring back the support we give? And that's partly because we do have a conservative government at the moment. But honestly, when we have had major, like the Labor Party, our major party that's on the left, when they have been in government, we've had horrible things happen to, like the blood on the Labor Party's hands when it comes to asylum seekers it's just, I can't even tell you. There should be great shame in Australia on a lot of accounts, whether it's immigration, whether it's climate change, whether it's Indigenous Australians. There is not a party that adequately addresses any of these ongoing issues in Australia.
So
and just very quickly, I just wanted to say I should have addressed that very specifically. Native women or girls are being raped and murdered in Canada, and the police don't do anything about it again and again and again. And if there was a person of color here, they'd be saying that. I'm not educated on it. I should be, but this is the least I can do.
So yeah, for that party, you're saying the Labor is your left party, but it's not your leftmost leaning party, is it? Or do you have another one?
I mean, okay, I guess our most, well, our micro party that would be the strongest on the left would be the Greens. But there used to be a party, it still exists. I'm just trying to remember what they changed their name to. The Sex Party is what they used to be called. Now I think they're called the Reason Party. They're quite progressive on a lot of things. But I say the left because we have a two-party system. So we have a left party and a right party. But in terms of leftist ideology,
I need to educate myself more on the Australian system of government. I've been meaning to do that, but I just haven't gotten around to it. But I really should, because I feel like I'm missing a few things here. But that's fine. But okay, so I've heard bad things. You mentioned Australia and the environment, right? As I understand that, like, almost all of your water rights have been bought off by private interests.
Yeah.
Like Coca-Cola, and the rest.
It's really difficult as well. Like when you look at like water, the Murray-Darling Basin. So we have long river systems, right, which are required for huge agricultural needs to keep the environment alive, ecosystems, et cetera, and you've got oil giants and companies like Adani who are not charged for using this water. they can take water out of the Murray-Darling and not pay for it, and yet you've got farmers all throughout that area who have to pay for water, we're a country that suffers with incredible drought. We have an entire department in Australia trying to keep this river system alive because we've mismanaged it so terribly. And like, this comes back as well to Indigenous Australia. You have people who lived on this land for hundreds of thousands of years and kept the ecosystem alive, dealt with things like fire and drought and managed the ecosystem and knew how to care for country. And we just have a politics that doesn't give a shit as long as profit is involved. And look, I'd love to give you some greater insight, because the thing is, it doesn't matter if you're talking about water. It doesn't matter if you're talking about the environment generally. It doesn't matter if you're talking about foreign interests. It doesn't matter if you're talking about our despicable record in immigration or Indigenous Australians. Like, there are so many, like, it's this thing, it's the same thing with Canada and New Zealand and even places like Norway, where there is a real cognitive idea of like what this country is and how great it is and how left it is. But you just need to do a little bit of digging, and it's quite shocking.
Yeah, amazing. And I've talked to you, and I've done research into things I've seen Australia do in the past, but like putting it all together, right? Like, I haven't really conceptualized exactly what you said, right? Like, still in my head, I had it of a more leftist society, right? Like, it's less worse than here, so it must be better, but like maybe not, right? And once you put it all together, yeah, I'm realizing just well, Australia is not the place I would be moving to if I were running from the tyranny of the United States. My search continues. Okay. Thank you for that. So I wanted to know, do you guys want to continue and do the bonus question? Things have been a little weird with this particular stream. Or what do you all want to do, since like a lot of people stepped out? Would you like to continue to do the bonus question?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, can we do the bonus question on open panel and let people who want to come in? I mean, up to you.
And also, before we get to the bonus question, can we have like a break to use the bathroom and such?
I mean, please go ahead. Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Sure. Thank you again, No Comment Chick, for coming through. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. Yourself?
I'm all right. I'm used to you wearing wigs. Is this your beautiful natural hair? Because I'm not sure if I've ever seen it before.
Like, that's just part of the the it's kind of like an alternate reality game that we play of like trying to figure out like, what do I really look like? Because it could be like a little bit different every night, and like,
you change it up every time.
It's a question about all streamers, really. It's just like, what is at the core of the streamer, right? Even with Prime, like, who's the real Prime underneath, like the Prime that we see every night on stream, like, right?
I actually really like the idea of doing just like a little bit of open discussion for the rest of the Amazon Lily, and then going into the open panel with the bonus question. Because leading on that question of who is the real Prime, you just told me in DMs that I don't know your political positions. I would love to fucking know what they are. What are they? What am I wrong about?
What do you think my political positions are? I don't
know. I think you're a socialist who, as I see you mockingly bow down to capitalism on your stream all the time, I think has some tiny bit of leanings towards the DemSoc or SOC system.
Do you think Dylan Burns, who is constantly playing it up as an evil capitalist, do you think he's an evil capitalist?
Wait, isn't Dylan Burns actually a capitalist? I thought...
And he is pretty evil, too, right?
Well,
so, like...
I mean, I'm saying that he's... I'm saying that
I'm saying when someone plays a character constantly, it starts to become really hard to differentiate between that character and who they are. And like I was saying, I literally only see you on panels that either I'm on or I'm just watching you host. I see very, very little of your actual arguments and positions come out.
Sorry, 1 second.
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. So in fact, why don't we just go to the open panel and have a discussion there. Thank you all for being here. All of you, and we'll thank you for both Jack in a moment when they actually get back. All right, so yeah, what's gonna happen now to the new people who just came into the stream. Things are a little crazy this particular stream, but I would say it's not usually this way, but it actually usually is. We're all over the place. That's okay. But what we're going to do is going to roll into another panel. This will be our open walk-on panel where audience members like you, yes, you at home, can participate as well. We'd love to hear from you. So we're going to replace at least find a group of people. Maybe some might want to join us, but we're going to replace them with you. So we'd love for you to come in, jump into our Discord server, put the link in chat. And if you click exclamation point open here, this will be an open walk-on panel where honest members may participate, join the Discord server, and go into the robot waiting room so that you can be let in. There's a link. Thank you. It's a metaphor for gifting those, 6 hot tier 1 gift subs. I'll shout you guys out in 1 second. Thank you. It's a metaphor. That's really amazing. Helping support this channel. But first, I got to shout out my wonderful guest who joined us for this Amazon Lily panel. We'll start off with Kat. Kat, thank you so much for coming here. I really appreciate it. You've been great and fantastic and wonderful. Thank you for submitting those questions. It was really helpful and they were really great.
Absolutely. Everybody, you could come follow me over at twitch.tv/Catherine Dominates, and you can subscribe to me right now. I will hear the notification and I will thank you here on Prime's stream, okay? I go on these panels all the time. I do a lot of work in the background. I worked with Prime and Kurt putting together this panel tonight, which was a bit of chaos, and you can help support all that work I do, and some of it you don't see by subscribing to me or donating to me. This Friday the 13th at 6 p.m. EST, a modified version of Goth Girl Talk is finally coming back. I'm hosting Goth Envy Talk with some wonderful people. So you could come over and just watch a cool hangout with a bunch of NB people. We'll be taking open questions from chat. You don't want to miss it.
Okay, next we'll go to Joe, who apparently really has to go. Joe, who's amazing, who's my friend, who I love and appreciate, and always so thankful that she takes time out of her very busy day to come through. Joe, apparently, who is casting from her couch, right? Is this your living room now? I am convinced that Joe is giving us a very slow house tour because she cast from her living room, from her bedroom twice, and also from her office, right? So I'm sure kitchen is next, right? Very curious as to what her setup might be. Joe, thank you so much as always. I know you're very busy. I know you do so many things you have to do, but thank you for taking time out of your day to join us and my audience and share your knowledge and perspective because it's so incredibly valuable. I love you, Joe, so much. Go ahead.
Okay, bye. Wait, what? Bye.
Oh God, don't say something about yourself.
Okay. I occasionally stream. I try to stream. I do political philosophy. My PhD is in that. I like to talk about philosophers in like a really fun and accessible way, so you can learn how to take those ways of thinking and incorporate it into your political analysis. I would do it more, but I don't. And also, I'm a stand-up comedian, so I'm gonna maybe start trying to like make some political satire on streams and like incorporate you guys into writing stuff that I later perform. Just test my material out on you guys. But yeah, I gotta go. And it was so nice chatting to you. And I love this panel. Bye.
It was really nice to meet you.
Bye, good friend. Bye. Miss you already. All right. Okay. So next, Jack, what we're doing is we're rolling into our walk-on panel. Okay. And so, like, if you can, you're free to join us. If not, that's okay.
Sure, I'm down.
Okay, great. So quickly, I would give you, attention. Thank you for being here, Riverboat Jack, for the panel.
I love attention.
we're rolling on to our walk-on panel. Riverboat Jack. It was our first time meeting in person this time, and it's really enjoyable. And I would really, really hope to have you back here in the future.
I would love to. And if you ever want to come on and just talk about your efforts to create this platform, like I love talking with all kinds of different people. Last night I had on a minarchist libertarian to debate socialism. It was a really, really good time. Apparently he had to be secretive about his identity because he is a prominent politician in the UK. So I don't know.
Okay.
Always open to talking with different people.
That sounds very enjoyable. Riverboat Jack's link is in the not YouTube. I don't know. It's in the chat. Go click on the link, please. No comment chick. Thanks for coming in here. Would you like to join us in our walk-on panel?
I do have to do some other things with stream tonight, but thank you so much. Yeah, I just had a bunch of stuff. The car trip from hell tonight that was a lot took a lot longer than I thought it would. But I'm glad as always to talk with you, even if it's only for a short while. And it's been cool hanging out and meeting everybody. And yeah, I do politics. I do random stuff, read memes, and I play video games occasionally. And every Friday we do a similar thing to this, kind of a podcast discussion forum, which is now going to become an actual podcast. It's actually going to be available in just an audio format, all cleaned up with all the gaps and awkward pauses taken out of it, so you can listen to it a lot faster. So that's very cool. We're looking forward to it. But yeah, it's been really cool being here as always, Prime, and it's always nice to get to know the real Prime.
Oh, thank you. So of my my speech with you removed all the awkward pauses from there, it would be a 10-minute cast. Honestly, it's all awkward pauses.
Same.
It's all the things. Yeah. So I definitely get you there. So I would love to do something like that, but can't afford the massive amount of work that would take to clean up my streams. Anyway. Thank you all for being here. So we're going to roll into our regular walk-on panel. What's going to happen to Riverboat Jack? I'm going to throw you over into our other chat, and we're going to be using Discord, not Whereby, and we're going to let the audience members jump in as well. All right, and I guess Catherine will be joining us as well.
Yeah.
So,
also, Catherine, it was really nice to meet you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really nice to meet you.
All right,
it's always nice to meet everybody on the Amazon Lily. It's a great fucking panel.
Huzzah! Okay, walk on panel. We're doing that right now. Okay, here we go.
All right.